Chapter 121 Human, careful, careful. You'll fall and die if you trip. Rayon's nagging did not reach Kale's ears. Kale walked toward the destroyed remains that Beacrox pointed to. What is going on? Please take a look. Beacrox pointed to a dark area underneath the remains. Kale looked down and saw a box that seemed to have been busted in multiple locations from the explosion. At that moment, Kale said two words while acting like he was shocked. My goodness. Beacrox nodded his head at Kale's exclamation. As expected, the young master is good at acting. Kale then turned around and looked toward Beacrox as he asked, how far down is it? It seems to be lower than the third floor of the basement. That was supposed to be Choi Han's line. That place is dash, but Beacrox blocked Choi Han with his left arm and answered instead, it seems to be lower than the third floor of the basement. Really? Russell. Russell. Kale heard the footsteps getting closer to him and asked with a serious expression, was there a fourth floor to the basement? Didn't they say that the magic tower only had 3 basement floors? I know. Right. That is what I heard. Kale completely ignored Choi Han for the first time. He didn't even look at Choi Han, and instead turned around to make eye contact with the people approaching him. The mage, Rosalind, started to speak with a serious expression on her face. Young Master Nim, to be honest with you, I have heard that the magic tower was conducting some secret research. Ah. She sounded shocked as she covered her mouth with her hands. She acted like she didn't know what to do as she looked behind Kale. It was as if she had said something that the person behind Kale should not have heard. Amazing. Kale applauded Rosalind's acting skills as he slowly turned around. Chief Harrell. Harrell Kodiang was looking toward Rosalind with an odd expression on his face. He slowly turned his gaze toward Kale once Kale called his name. An unknown look of passion was in Harrell's eyes as Kale started to speak. Something unexpected seems to have happened, Chief Harrell. Don't you think so? It does seem that way. Harrell was trying to answer with a calm demeanor, but he could not hide the greed in his heart. What is going on? Why are you all gathered around the broken magic tower? Tunka and his subordinates soon arrived. The other chiefs were arriving as well. Kale put a hand on Harrell's shoulder as he started to speak. Tunka. What is it? Tunka seemed to be nervous. Kale had never called his name so seriously yet gently before. We seem to have found a hidden area of the magic tower. What about it? Is it not completely destroyed? You stupid idiot. Kale wanted to smack Tunka on the head, but held back as he gave an order to his crew, go figure out what is down there. And Harrell? Yes, young Master Nim. Kale looked toward Harrell and asked, I'm sure you'll help us. Of course, I will help you, young Master Nim. Like I don't know what you are thinking. Kale wanted to laugh at Harrell's greedy face, but he focused on his acting and played along. All right, go. Everybody nodded their heads with serious expressions, as if something unexpected had happened. At that moment, Choi Han, who approached Kale, spoke in a relaxed manner. Choi Han was acting properly for the first time. Kale Nim, it is dangerous down there because of the aftermath of the explosion. Please wait here while we go down to look. Yes, human. You are weak, so go sit in the shade. Why are you both saying something so obvious? Kale had nothing to say to these repetitively obvious statements. Why would he go to such a dangerous place? So, Kale just remained silent. They are right. Our soldiers and warriors will go with them, so you do not need to worry, young Master Nim. Is that so, Chief Harrell? Yes, sir. Harrell seemed anxious to go in as well. Kale nodded his head with a relaxed expression and gave Harrell a warning. Of course, everything in there belongs to me. You do know that. Harrell smiled back, of course. However, won't you sell it if it is something that you don't need? Obviously. What? You want to follow them so that I don't hide anything? That is definitely part of it. Harrell did not hide his thoughts. He was worried about Kale's group hiding the items, but he also was greedy to see everything in that underground lab. I see. Harrell, I don't want us to have such lies between us. So, go ahead. Weak human, you are lying again. You're really good at it. That is your talent. Kale apparently had a talent for lying. Thank you for your understanding. I will do my best to assist them. Sure, sure. Just don't get hurt. Beacrox had to hold back a snort at Kale's final words. Ron patted his son on the shoulder before heading down into the half-destroyed basement. Naturally, Harrel and his subordinates followed behind them. Kale leisurely moved away from the spot and observed them. Human, it is a bit disappointing. What could Rayon be talking about? We put a bunch of traps down there and destroyed the place last night. Kale recalled what he had just said to Harrel. Don't get hurt. Kale wanted to laugh. He was the one who told Rayon to install a bunch of traps, as well as the one who told Ron about the location of the traps in order to make Harrel's group fall into them. Wouldn't they think that the information was more valuable if they had to suffer a bit to get it? Human, you have an evil smirk on your face. And give me my gold coin. I did the work, an evil smirk. Kale touched the corners of his lips with his fingers and quickly hid his smirk. Tunka. Kale approached Tunka while Harrel and the chiefs were gone. Two of Tunka's subordinates, his two most trusted subordinates, were standing behind him. Kale quietly asked Tunka a question. You told His Highness the Crown Prince that we were friends. Ahem. It was rare to see Tunka look so shocked. Kale did not miss this opportunity to keep talking. I presume we will find some of the mage's research documents in that hidden floor. If there are any documents that will help all of you, I plan to give them to you. What? Kale answered back seriously while Tunka stood there looking lost like an idiot. And if it is something that could bring you harm, the words, something that could bring you harm, made Tunka's expression turn serious. Even an idiot who did not think much like Tunka knew that it was reasonable for the mages to have research that would be able to harm them. That thought made Tunka start to worry. However, then I will definitely hand that over to you too. The word, definitely, echoed in Tunka's ear. He recalled how Kale had found a ship for him and had come to say goodbye when they first met. Should you be saying that? Shouldn't you at least pretend to not sell something so precious in order to be able to sell it for a high price? Kale looked shocked. Tunka, do you think I am such a person? No. You are not like that. Yes, Kale Henitus, this person was not such a petty person. Kale continued to speak after hearing Tunka's comment. You said that I was your friend. I believe that a fair deal can only start between two people who are at the same level. I don't think you are the type of person who will try to cheat me. Kale then jokingly added on, you're not a petty bastard like those mages. Tunka started to smile. The concerned expression slowly disappeared from his face and Tunka started to laugh out loud. You are right. Indeed, kihihi. I am not like that. Ha 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 ha. Tunka laughed for a while, however, his gaze was still focused on Kale. He had never seen such a noble before. He was worlds different compared to those noble bastards who were pretty much dogs to the Whipper Kingdom's mages. Nobody, seriously, nobody had cheered him and his subordinates on. However, he had now found someone who was cheering for him. One friend. Tunka himself was shocked after saying that word to the Roan Kingdom's crown prince. However, he now felt that it was a good thing that he had used that word. You really are a weak, but good person. Tunka had approved of a weakling for the first time in his life. Don't say such obvious things. Kale accepted it as something obvious as he was thinking to himself, now Harrel cannot try to trick me. He stealthily reinforced it with Tunka once more. A fair deal. Sound good? Of course. I am not a swindler. Don't you all agree as well? Tunka's two subordinates nodded their heads. You are right, Commander-in-Chief Nim. Absolutely. It must be fair. There was nothing wrong with what Kale had said. It was only right for people at the same level to have a fair deal. Even Kale himself believed this to be the case. That was why he just waited for Beacrox and crew to bring back the research and share the results with everyone. Once they came back to the surface, they found a half-destroyed box in the hidden fourth floor of the basement. A portion of the documents inside of the box were still intact, with the contents revolving around two topics: a mana storage device that used the principles of ancient powers, the reasons for developing magic resistance. Both of these could become poison to harm the reformed Whipper Kingdom. I'm sure that the Whipper Kingdom side knows the worth of these documents better than anybody else. Nobody responded to Kale's comment. They were currently in the chief's tent. Tunka, Harrel, as well as the other chiefs, were all gathered together with Kale. Kale's group was by his side, like they were protecting him. Yes. We are well aware. Kale held back his laughter while seeing how slowly Harrel responded to him. A mana storage device that used the principles of ancient powers. Harrel was a poor soul who hated magic because he could feel mana but could not become a mage because he could not store mana. However, a mana storage device, as well as part of the research regarding it, was now in front of him. Something that would give him the opportunity to use magic had appeared. I'm sure that he wants to get his hands on it. Kale touched the small cloth pouch in front of him, and this is supposedly the mana storage device. Harold's eyes started to shine at Kale's comment. You are right, human. I raised it. The seed that Kale had passed off to Rayon a year ago was the mana storage device. However, the item currently in Kale's hand was not that seed. Once that mana storage device sprouted and then developed a plant, he had simply taken one of the plants and extracted the seed. Of course, this seed was modified as well. Rosalind, is this usable right now? No. It is currently in seed form, but it is too dry to be used. You might be able to use the seed and the research documents to create a new device. However, Rosalind stopped talking and peeked toward Harold. Kale also observed Harold's reaction. Harold could not hide his greed for this seed and the research documents, even if they were damaged. Kale verified this before moving on to the next topic, the reason for developing magic resistance. This is some tremendous research as well. This time, it was Tunka and the other chiefs' turns to flinch. The reason that they were able to defeat the mages had a lot to do with their magic resistance. This document regarding the reason for developing magic resistance was something that they needed, as well as something that they could not pass off to anybody else. Kale looked toward Tunka. Tunka smiled back at him. Kale turned away and asked the Whipper Kingdom's side, well, it's only a portion of the research, so it probably isn't that important. I can just throw it out, right? The table shook. Someone had kicked the table with anxiety. Of course, I was joking. Who? Someone let out a sigh. It may just be a portion of it, but it is valuable information. Kale recalled what Rosalind and Rayon had discussed with him before. Young Master Kale, it would take at least 10 years to figure things out with just these files. Although, it is only 10 years if talented mages are leading the research. Human, you need to be able to control magic to be able to research that. Kale focused on those words, research that required mages to complete. Harold would do whatever it took to continue the research. In order to do that, he would need to hire some mages. Rosalind had accurately pointed that out for Kale. Young Master Kale, we might be able to have the Whipper Kingdom's weakness in our hands. I knew it. There are many times you and I are thinking the same thing. The Whipper Kingdom's leadership, who claimed their goal was to get rid of magic, was using mages to do magic research. Something like that was bound to happen if the Whipper Kingdom acquired these documents, and Kale just needed to find an informant to gather some evidence of it. Rosalind and Kale were smiling while thinking about having that information in their hands, while Rayon was looking inside the box and giving his feedback. This is no more than the scraps. The actual seed was safely in Rosalind's lab that Rayon liked to visit. Tunka. Why, yes. I will hand these documents to you. Tunka's expression quickly changed. Do you mean that? Kale looked toward Harold and nodded his head. Of course. Kale tapped the table with the cloth bag in his hand. Tap, tap. The dry seed made a dull noise as it hit the table. The Whipper Kingdom's side all flinched at every tap. Kale did not care as he proceeded with what he wanted to say. I spent 10 billion gallons on this magic tower without managing to gain anything from it. Now that I have found something, I plan to sell it all to you. Tunka, what would you do in this situation? I would try to get as much compensation as possible. Correct. Chief Harold started to frown. If it was the Kale that he knew, and if it was him in Kale's position, he would try to take as much money back as possible, especially since the magic tower itself was gone now. But our financial state is not very good right now. They did not have much money available because they were preparing for a war with the Empire. However, Harold wanted to get those two documents, no matter what, but we also cannot fight them. Kale had quite a large amount of power. Their war against the Empire would be delayed if they started to fight Kale. Delaying the war any longer was not good for the soldiers' morale. He'll try to get more than 10 billion. Since he bought the magic tower for 10 billion, the Empire would happily pay 10 billion gallons for it if Kale tried to sell it to them. Both Harold and Tunka were well aware of this fact. This is what I'm thinking. Kale opened up his left hand. Harold let out a gasp. 5 fingers, 50 billion gallons. Tunka shouted with surprise. Harold quickly started to smile. We can negotiate now that we know the starting point. You always started higher than what you wanted at the beginning of a deal. Harold was about to speak in order to properly start negotiating, but Kale was a bit faster. 50 billion. No, just give me 5 billion. Excuse me? Harold asked with confusion. Did he really say 5 billion? Kale put on a gentle and pure smile. His warm gaze swept by the leaders in the room. Yes. 5 billion. He had already agreed to sell the actual documents to the Crown Prince for quite a sum. It would be great if the Roan Kingdom's mages managed to eat up the Whipper Kingdom once it was weakened by the Empire. Kale recalled the conversation he had with the Crown Prince last winter. Kale, sell it for 5 billion to those poor souls. It's not like you were the one who paid the 10 billion gallons to purchase the magic tower in the first place. I planned on selling it to them for 10 billion, but I will do as you command, Your Highness. Good. Wouldn't it be great if you could be their benefactor? That's what you're really aiming for, isn't it? Of course, you terrible bastard, Alberu cursed at Kale as he started to laugh. Kale laughed with him as well. The Whipper Kingdom is currently struggling. I feel like it is a fair deal for your current situation. You really, such a noble, Tunka could not speak properly, as he looked toward Kale with teary eyes. Kale found this to be annoying, but maintained his smile. Tunka finally stood up from his chair and started to shout, "Thank you. Thank you very much." Kale had never seen someone thanking him after buying scraps for 5 billion gallons. However, Kale naturally responded back, "As long as you know." Chapter 122. Harold could not understand Kale's calm demeanor. As long as you know. This was a chance for Kale to get significant profit. He held 2 documents that could harm the Whipper Kingdom. But he wasn't going to be greedy. Harold couldn't believe it. Yet he had no choice but to believe. He'd heard it firsthand. This is the person who purchased the magic tower for 10 billion gallons and didn't even investigate it. Kale had declared he wanted only the 20th floor when making the purchase. He sent nobody to investigate afterwards. Harold had stationed watchers at the tower all year, anticipating Kale's discovery. But Kale truly did nothing with the magic tower after buying it. Are you not greedy for money? Harold couldn't help but ask. Kale shook his head. Do you know how much wealth the Hennetis territory holds? We have more money than you can fathom. I am the first son of the Hennetis family. Right, Harold had forgotten. Kale spent 10 billion gallons like nothing. Kale offered another reason for the bewildered Harold. I know these documents are coveted by every continental power. I refuse to stand in the eye of that storm. But Kale didn't mean it. He knew the storm's center was calm. He wanted peace while others warred. That's why he sold it to both the Whipper Kingdom and the Crown Prince. Young Master Nim, you're saying you'll sell it now to avoid danger? Yes. Correct. As you know, I am a peace lover. Harold accepted this. Kale was the same man who refused to expose Harold's identity. Harold turned away from Kale and looked around the tent. The other chiefs looked like they still had some questions, but Tunka and the warriors' side seemed to be in awe of Kale. It is something I need anyway. The mana storage device was extremely tempting, since it was said to mimic ancient powers. Harold and the others in the Whipper Kingdom considered ancient powers to be the greatest of powers. That sounds good to me. Commander Tunkanim, what do you think? Tunka did not respond to Harold's question and instead reached his large hand out toward Kale. Tunka's serious expression, which was extremely different than his usual idiotic expression, explained his sincere feelings to Kale. Thank you very much. Kale stood up and shook Tunka's hand. If you're thankful, don't forget about this. Of course. I will not forget about your benevolence. With Tunka as the representative, the Whipper Kingdom purchased the documents that were found in the secret lab of the Magic Tower from Kale Hennetis for 5 billion gallons. The contract was settled quickly because the Whipper Kingdom rushed it. Kale returned to his tent after the contract was signed. Why are you following me here? Kale looked toward Choi Han, who was following him into his tent. Choi Han was holding the contract and a note for 5 billion gallons. Kale Nim. What? Kale undid the top button of his shirt that had been almost suffocating him all morning and did not pay much attention to Choi Han. You really are amazing, Kale Nim. Huh. That was why he was shocked. Kale Nim, your abilities are top-notch. I don't think there is anybody else who is so talented in this kind of strategy. I am terrible in this aspect. Were you trying to say scam? Kale recalled how terrible Choi Han's acting had been. However, I think it would be best to be as careful as possible with the next individual we plan on meeting. Kale finally realized why Choi Han had followed him back to his tent. The individual they were planning to meet next was the gold dragon. Kale Nim, you may always be making a move looking 2 steps ahead, but that dragon is strong. It is possible that both Rayon and I may not be enough. He thinks I will not be enough. I am much stronger than he thinks. Rayon's retort filled Kale's mind, but Kale agreed with Choi Han for once. Choi Han quietly stood there observing Kale. Yes, Choi Han, you are right. Choi Han's expression brightened a bit after seeing Kale agree with him. Kale did not care about that though. He had already thought about this meeting with the gold dragon many times. In terms of priorities for this meeting, it was safety first, safety second, and safety third. That was the only way to make sure that he didn't die. Choi Han, I will leave the front to you this time. What do you think? Choi Han vigorously nodded his head. That was what he had wanted. He was the best fit to protect Kale from the front. Yes, please leave it to me. I will protect Kale Nim and everybody else as well. I will use everything I have to make sure of it. This type of response was what Kale wanted to hear. If Choi Han was going to be like this, it was worth trying to talk to this gold dragon. Choi Han had never used his full strength to fight until now. That was the same for Rayon as well. I am here, weak human. Another dragon cannot even compare to me. Kale naturally ignored Rayon's bluff. Then I will prepare for us to leave tomorrow. Good. Make sure to get your rest once you're done. Yes, Kale Nim. Kale felt at peace once Choi Han left the tent. However, he was not alone. Kale took a gold coin out of his pocket and threw it into the air. Here. Oh. Rayon appeared in the air and carefully caught the gold coin with his 2 front paws. This is a gold coin. This was the reward for Rayon's part in destroying the magic tower. Although 10 silver coins and 1 gold coin were worth the same, Rayon seemed focused on the gold coin. Kale slowly petted Rayon's round head. Isn't it great? It is great, human. Wonderful. Thank you. I will work even harder. Good. He then cautiously whispered to Rayon. He had promised to give Rayon a gold coin. An and Hong, he wanted to say An and Hong should not know about it. He wanted Rayon to keep it secret. However, he heard odd cries at the tent entrance. Meo, hee. Meo, laughter mixed with the meows. Kale saw 2 kittens crawling into his tent without knocking. Of course, it was An and Hong. You sharp bastards. Kale continued after seeing their sparkling eyes. Fine, here. 2 gold coins flew across the room. An and Hong caught them midair, showing remarkable agility. Kale watched them and Rayon laughing while clutching their gold coins before lying on the bed. Kale was fine with a crazy Tunka, but this extremely nice Tunka made Kale feel uncomfortable. Thanks. I'll keep that in mind. I wish for your victory against the Empire. Of course. Kale started to think while observing Tunka nod his head, as if that was a foregone conclusion. The Whipper Kingdom has no chance of winning this war. However, contrary to Kale's opinion, the forces around the continent had differing opinions. They saw this as a war between the Empire, which was in chaos after the destruction of the Church of the Sun, and the Whipper Kingdom, who were a tightly knit group specializing in offense. Many were thinking that it was difficult to determine the results of the war. That was because the Whipper Kingdom's goal did not seem to be taking over the Empire. They just seemed focused on taking control of a few of the Empire's castles. Furthermore, it seemed logical that the Whipper Kingdom would go after the Empire. With the development of alchemy, the Empire had a stronger connection to magic than most other kingdoms. But this is the Empire they are going up against. Kale determined that the Empire would win the war as he reached his hand out to shake Tunka's hand. Tunka thought it was a goodbye handshake, and so he immediately started to shake it. However, Kale took a step forward and whispered in Tunka's ear. Alchemy is sneakier than magic. Protect your warriors with magic resistance. Tunka's shoulders flinched. Kale smiled at the people who were wondering what they were talking about and added something else. I'm certain that the Empire has a mole in your army. Although you have probably investigated already, look again if you didn't find them. Start with the people close to you. That is the Imperial Prince's usual method. Make sure that you find the mole. Kale moved away from Tunka and looked into Tunka's eyes as he said the next part. Kill them. Tunka's pupils started to shake. Kale let go of Tunka's hand and gently asked, "Don't you trust me?" "I trust you." Kale was satisfied with Tunka's response. The Empire will win. However, Kale hoped that the Whipper Kingdom would last as long as possible and annoy the Empire. That would give the Roan Kingdom time to get stronger and develop their alliance with the Brek Kingdom. We have to prepare before the North comes down. The moment that the Northern Alliance started to make their move, Alberu would take control of the Roan Kingdom and fight against them. Then have a safe trip. See you next time. Kale responded to Tunka with a smile. Next time. There's no reason for me to see you again. Kale walked to the carriage and told Pendrick, who was standing with his hood down, the order. Let's go. It was time to head to the lair of the Gold Dragon, an ancient dragon that has lived for a long time. Kale clutched at his collar. It was chilly here, even though it was summer. No, as the snow underneath his shoes demonstrated, this place was cold. Kale asked Locke, who was in front of him, "Locke, haven't you been here before?" "Yes, sir. I did not expect it to be here." Cough. Kale coughed and sniffled. His nose was runny. Rosalind chuckled and handed him a handkerchief, and Kale covered his nose with it. "Pendrick, is this the place?" "Yes, this is it." Kale did not expect it to be here. Kale thought about the necklace that was under the layers of clothes he was wearing. It was the absorbing necklace, the necklace that allowed you to store a power of any affinity inside. He had sent Locke to Mount Yelia in order to find this necklace. Kale recalled how Locke had brought back the necklace and how he had used the power to put out the fire in the jungle. Kale stood on the snowy peak and looked down. Mount Yelia was known as one of the most dangerous mountains in the entire continent. Who knew that a dragon's lair would be here? The gold dragon lived at the spot Locke had taken the necklace. "Pendrick, what do we have to do now?" They were at the peak, but did not see the lair. Pendrick spoke with a face that seemed both extremely excited and so weak he might collapse at any moment. "We just need to wait." "How long?" "Until Dragon Nim wants to see us." "What?" "We're just going to wait in this freezing snow." Kale looked around to see everyone bundled up in fur. Beacrox glared at Pendrick with a vicious gaze, as if questioning such a ridiculous answer. Beacrox clearly disliked the cold. Pendrick cautiously asked Kale, "But young Master Nim, when will I meet Dragon Nim? Will he teleport here when you tell him the location?" Kale smiled. "No, then how will he arrive?" "Elf, I am right behind you." "Why hasn't this mediocre dragon come to greet us?" Rayon's sharp voice echoed in Kale's mind. Kale wanted to repeat it verbatim to Pendrick. "Pendrick." "Yes." "Behind you, huh?" At that moment, the mountain shook violently. Good, he should come greet us. "The great and mighty Rayon Miru is here." Kale heard Rayon's triumphant voice as he urgently grabbed Choi Han's shoulder. Boom, snow at the peak exploded upward. No, the very tip of the peak surged into the air. Ha! Ah! Everyone scrambled for balance while staring at the center. Kale did the same. "Oh! We finally meet Dragon Nim." Pendrick clasped his hands wildly, like a fervent believer. Kale quickly positioned himself behind Choi Han and signaled Rosalind and the others to flank him. It'll be disastrous if the dragon breathes fire. The gold dragon could launch a breath attack because it was an adult dragon. Kale felt relieved after everybody else surrounded him. Boom. The peak that shot up suddenly stopped in the air to reveal a large cave. Kale observed that every other direction besides where they were had avalanches descending the mountain. It was at that moment. It had stopped snowing. The snow that had covered the entire mountain peak suddenly ceased falling from the sky. Was it the dragon that was making it snow? How could there be such a munchkin? Could Rayon do this too? Kale wondered whether he had underestimated Rayon's usefulness until now. But he could not dwell on it, as footsteps approached. Click. Click. Kale's group held their breath as the sounds drew nearer. Click. Click. The rhythmic steps came from the cave. Kale glimpsed what looked like a doll emerging from the darkness. Finally, the figure stepped into the light, an elf with beautiful blonde hair, so stunning that even the whales paled in comparison. The elf began to smile. Oh, plop. Pendrick kneeled. That confirmed Kale's suspicion. This was the Gold Dragon, a member of the Mad Dragon race. At that moment, asterisk me first, asterisk as Kale flinched at Rayon's sudden shout. Gasp. Pendrick gasped in surprise. A small black blob rushed past him. Pendrick looked flabbergasted as he cried out, "Be Black Dragon Nim." The black blob was Rayon. Kale sighed, watching the small black dragon fly toward the blonde elf before he could intervene. Rayon instantly reached the elf, who let out a surprised "huh" and gazed at him with an odd expression. Rayon opened his wings out wide in front of the gold dragon, who looked like an elf, and confidently started to speak. "Nice to meet you." Rayon seemed to be excited. The blonde elf's expression became even stranger. However, Rayon did not stop. "I am the great and mighty Rayon Miru." "Who are you?" Rayon's round eyes seemed full of anticipation as he watched the blonde elf. The blonde elf finally spoke after a moment of silence. "What the hell? Are you really a dragon?" "There's a dragon that would say, 'Nice to meet you,' to another dragon." The gold dragon seemed to be questioning how such an odd existence could be. Kale had expected this. This was a real dragon, the race said to be selfish and egotistical. Such selfish beings wouldn't happily greet each other, more likely, they'd fight while claiming superiority. Kale poked Choi Han's back. Choi Han immediately put his hand on his sword's handle, preparing in case the gold dragon caused a ruckus. Chapter 123 I'll do it. However, contrary to Kale's nervousness, Rayon was calm. "I am indeed a dragon." The blonde elf's expression became even weirder after hearing Rayon's response. To say that another dragon was not a dragon was pretty much asking for a fight, but this young dragon responded back in a cheery manner. "Yes, you are a dragon." A weak response came out of the blonde dragon's mouth. Rayon nodded his head. "Yes. And you are a dragon as well. That is why, nice to meet you. Don't you even know how to greet people?" "You're asking me if I know how to greet people?" Dragons did not greet each other. They might make snarky comments at each other when they met, however, greeting each other. This blonde elf felt weak after experiencing something like this for the first time in his long life. Rayon extended his front paw to the beautiful blonde elf. The elf started to speak after seeing Rayon's paw. "Are you asking to shake my hand?" "Yeah." "Wow. I've never experienced something like this in my almost 1,000 years of life." "Wow. Unbelievable. What the hell?" The gold dragon continued to sigh as he looked at Rayon's paw with an iffy expression on his face. After staring at it for a few seconds, the gold dragon asked with a serious expression without shaking Rayon's paw. "Hey, is your IQ really low?" Rayon's flapping wings suddenly stopped. Poke. Poke. Kale poked Choi Han's back even harder. They looked like they could start fighting at any moment. Clang. Choi Han's sword came slightly out of the scabbard. At that moment, the blonde elf's gaze turned toward Choi Han. At least, Kale thought it was directed at Choi Han. But that was not the case. Why is he looking at me? The dragon's gaze was not at Choi Han, but at Kale, who was peeking his head just the slightest bit above Choi Han's back. Kale made eye contact with the dragon. The blonde elf started to smile. He had felt the aura of a profession that had disappeared a long time ago. It was the only enemy to the great and mighty dragons. This was an aura that he should only feel from the children of the one family that carried on the bloodline of the profession. There should be nobody alive that knows about this aura or this power. That nostalgic scent blew by the dragon's face. At that moment, the blonde elf's pupils became cloudy. His reptilian pupils turned gold and Kale instantly felt like a surging hail was surrounding him. Is this dragon fear? Dragon fear was said to instill fear in all life forms. Although that was what Kale initially thought it was, this was a bit different. He did not feel any fear, however. His body reacted once he thought about dragon fear. Boom. Kale could feel his heart beating wildly. Then, the dominating aura, the ancient power that Kale had found in the dragon skeleton within the black swamp, worked together with the vitality of the heart and shot out as well. Kale became nervous. He thought that a surging hail was surrounding him, however, it turned into a warm breeze surrounding his body. His body, which was shaking from the cold, as well as his runny nose, all quickly stopped. It is thermal magic and not dragon fear. Kale was left wondering what that power was from earlier. A dragon did something nice. Kale remained alert at this unbelievable sight and his dominating aura continued to grow bigger. Ah! At that moment, Choi Han let out a gasp and turned around. He could see Kale standing straight while making eye contact with the dragon. Kale seemed extremely cool and collected, as if he had never been shivering in the first place. I knew it. This is the Kale Nim I know. In Choi Han's point of view, Kale was someone who always pretended to be a coward, but always stood up against everything with confidence. Choi Han was amazed by Kale's demeanor once again. A person's influence definitely did not come from just their strength. At that moment, a black and round blob covered Kale's eyes. It was Rayon. Hey, Goldie. Kale wondered for a moment if he had heard Rayon correctly. What? Goldie. You can't stare at our weak human like that. You know how much of a coward he is. Rayon then continued to speak inside Kale's mind. Human, you looked as strong as my front paw right now, but there is no need to be scared or nervous. I will protect you. Rayon then continued on. Goldie over there stared at you, so I debated fighting him, but he seems like a decent guy since he used thermal magic on you. The gold dragon, who did not hear any of this, looked toward Rayon with complete disbelief. He is indeed weak, but more importantly, did you just say, about a human? Are you really an idiot? Kale could see Rayon's wings stop once more. Rayon then looked back toward the gold dragon. The gold dragon had called Rayon stupid twice already. Will they start to fight? Kale felt cold, even with the thermal magic surrounding him. At that moment, Rayon started his rebuttal. I do not have a low IQ, I just have high sociability. I'm not like you socially awkward golden dragon who doesn't even know how to shake hands. Golden dragon. I guess he is a gold-colored dragon. Kale knew that Rayon wasn't the type to lose an argument without even trying. Kale felt an odd sense of pride. There was a benefit to raising Rayon into a strong little boy. Kale could hear Pendrick's voice while he was thinking about that. My goodness, two dragon nymphs chatting peacefully without getting into a fight. This is the type of thing I should be recording. I never expected such luck to fall upon me. I've always thought of myself as a cursed elf because I could not see elementals. I can't believe I get to witness two dragon nymphs, the stars of the natural world. The elf healer, Pendrick, kneeled down and clasped his hands. Kale watched the elf kneeling on the white snow and mumbling to himself as he came to a conclusion. This one isn't normal either. All of the life forms around him had something odd about them. Kale thought that this was a really difficult environment for a normal person like himself to survive. He slowly moved a step away from Pendrick. Thanks to that, he could once again see the gold dragon, who was still in the blonde elf form, who had been covered by Rayon. The dragon seemed to be full of disbelief. Rayon confidently shouted while looking at the dragon's look of disbelief. Did my greatness shock you, golden dragon? The blonde elf let out a sigh-like laugh before nodding his head with a relaxed expression. Yes, I was very shocked because of you, cough. What the? Kale became nervous. The blonde elf suddenly covered his mouth and started to cough. Fluids started to spill out from between his fingers. Rayon's shocked voice quickly shot out. What is wrong? Golden dragon, blood. Don't cough up blood. A dragon was coughing up blood. Drip, drip. The drops of blood that traveled through the blonde elf's hand and fell down started to dye the white snow red. Kale became anxious while looking at the red blood. Isn't it something serious at this point? Cough, ugh, cough. The blonde elf hunched forward because of how much he was coughing. Rayon flew over and supported the elf up as he continued to cough up blood. Ha, ha, ha. Golden dragon, do not laugh. The blonde elf started to laugh while looking at Rayon. The gold dragon continued to speak, even as he was coughing. A dragon worrying about another dragon. Cough. Stop talking. Goldie. The blonde elf's golden pupils lit up for a moment. That golden light caught Kale's attention, even though he was a bit of a distance away. At that moment, Pendrick started to run toward the gold dragon. Iruben Nim. At the same time, the gold dragon named Iruben officially introduced himself. Little kid, my name is not Goldie. It is Iruben. Is that so? Nice to meet you. But I am not a little kid. Rayon, who was saying that he was not a little kid in a grumbling voice, continued to support Iruben up. Iruben watched Rayon with an odd expression in his eyes. Watching the two of them like this, Kale felt like the two dragons would not end up fighting. That was why he patted Choi Han on the back. Let's go. Of course, Kale still had Choi Han stand in front of him as they walked. Kale stopped in front of the cave that shot up to the top of Mount Yelia. The cave was pretty wide, with a staircase heading down at the end. Iruben Nim, are you okay? Pendrick was using healing on the gold dragon Iruben as he supported him back up. Iruben nodded his head and took a handkerchief out of his spatial dimension to wipe the blood off his mouth. Yes, my coughing seems to have stopped. Pendrick, I haven't seen you since you were little. Yes sir, it is an honor to meet you again. Kale thought that Iruben was quite warm in the way he treated Pendrick. That warmth surprised Kale, making him quietly observe the gold dragon and the elf. At that moment, Iruben's gaze turned to Kale's group, Locke, Rosalind, Ron, Beacrox, An, Hong, and Choi Han. Iruben's gaze swept through all of them before landing back on Kale and not moving away. What now? Kale grew anxious, unable to figure out why the gold dragon had fixed his gaze on him. He really hadn't done anything this time. It was at that moment, stop looking at him. Rayon quickly flew over and stood in front of Kale to block his view. I already told you our weak human is a coward. You cannot stare at him with such an intense gaze. I may be a coward, but not so cowardly that I'd faint from a look. Kale wanted to stand up for himself but held back, as he had no desire to look at Iruben anyway. That was why he could only hear what Iruben was saying, without being able to see his expression. He is a coward? Iruben sounded intrigued. How interesting. Kale started to feel a sense of uncertainty. What was funny? Couldn't Iruben share that information with all of them? Clang! Choi Han took his sword partway out of the scabbard again. Kale could also see Rosalind preparing to cast magic should the need arise. An odd sense of nervousness filled the air. However, it soon disappeared. The blonde elf, Iruben, stood up straight as he spoke. Follow me. Iruben walked into his lair while adding, this is all part of fate, I suppose. Kale was invited into Iruben the gold dragon's lair. He put the interested Rayon and the serious Choi Han ahead of him as they stepped inside. They are aiming for the world tree. Yes. Based on what Kale Nim has heard, they may have the support of a kingdom or an organization with similar influence. Iruben and Pendrick were having a serious conversation in what resembled an office. However, Kale could not hear them clearly. They sat around a large oval table, with the gold dragon seated on a raised chair. But Kale paid no mind to that. Something else held his attention. Asterisk, they did say he was a gold dragon. Asterisk. Kale looked down at the table and his own chair. The chair was solid gold except for the cushion, and the table seemed crafted from gold and glittering jewels. A lavish chandelier hung from the ceiling. He'd expected a mere cave since the lair was inside one, but he was wrong. Asterisk, this dragon must be rich. Asterisk. Kale's expression turned odd. At that moment, Iruben's voice reached him. You don't know the real nutjob that runs the secret organization. Asterisk, wow, nutjob. Asterisk. The dragon's choice of words was startling. It was fitting for a dragon. Kale could see Pendrick seriously nodding his head. Unfortunately, we do not. Tap. Tap. Iruben tapped on the table with his finger. Odd. Iruben's questioning tone made Kale subconsciously look toward him. The gold dragon explained what was weighing down on his mind. There is no way that such an organization hasn't been around for a long time. If they managed to take control of the eastern continent's underworld, they would have had to prepare for tens of years. Something feels fishy. Iruaben-nim, could you please share what you are thinking? Iruaben crossed his arms and started to answer Pendrick's request. I don't know the situation in the continent because I have not left my lair for about 100 years, but it is impossible for an organization that is only made up of humans to create such ruckus in both the eastern and western continents. Then you think there are non-humans? Pendrick cautiously asked, but Iruaben did not answer. He just rubbed his chin with his hand like he was deep in thought. Pendrick recalled everything that had occurred until now. They were cruel beings that had thrown the world into chaos. There was a race he thought of as he considered the chaos of the world. Iruaben-nim, then, maybe, is it the demonic race? Demonic race. Choi Han, Rosalind, and the rest all turned grim. It was the typical reaction to hearing those words. They all looked toward Kale with shock in their eyes. Then they all relaxed. Kale was looking at Pendrick with an expression that seemed to be asking what this nonsense was. Choi Han, who relaxed after seeing Kale's reaction, noticed that Iruaben was looking at Pendrick with a similar expression. Pendrick, you've always had a vivid imagination. Then it is not. Of course not. If the demonic race starts to move, the gods give us a revelation. Then. Iruaben answered back with indifference, as you all already suspected, they either built up the organization with a kingdom at the center, or unknown forces of nature are working with them. It could even be both. Iruaben casually added on with an expression that was full of confusion. How interesting. And Kale just happened to make eye contact with Iruaben at that moment. Why is he saying how interesting while looking at me? Kale suppressed his discomfort and quickly moved his hand. He could hear Rayon's voice. It feels nice, human. Kale was caressing Rayon's round head. Rayon was laying down on a comfortable couch next to Kale. Rayon, An, and Hong were all laying around this extremely luxurious-looking couch. This should prevent him from making me do anything, right? He continued to pet Rayon's head, hoping that Iruaben would remember that Rayon was by his side. He had no choice but to do so. Most novels have dragons making the humans who found their lair do their bidding, saying something like, "Go find out their identity." Kale continued to pet Rayon's head, as he wanted to avoid such a situation. At that moment, Rayon's voice filled Kale's mind. Human, will my future villa be like this too? Crap. A new type of danger had surfaced. A young dragon had seen a real dragon's lair. Kale looked down at Rayon. Rayon must have seen something in Kale's eyes, as he sighed before fluttering his wings. It's okay, human. Do not worry about the money. I will earn the money to build it. You just wait. Kale wanted to laugh. Where would a little kid who earned 10 silver coins as allowance go to earn that much money? Kale ignored the part where Rayon said that he would earn the money himself. Plus, that was not the problem right now. Kale, who peeked back over at Iruaben, flinched. Iruaben was still staring at him. Is he really going to make me do it? Kale watched Iruaben slowly start to speak with anxiety. Iruaben finally started to speak. Well, it's not my problem. I'm getting very weak in my old age. It's annoying to step in. Not my business whether they argue, fight, or kill each other. Oh. I like this dragon. Kale had a better impression of Iruaben for the first time. Maybe it was because he was an ancient dragon, but his personality was not bad. Iruaben looked toward Pendrick and continued to speak. But it looks like we will need to strengthen the magic shield around the world tree. Yes, Dragon Nim. I will also make a magic device to install in your elf village, so take it with you. Thank you very much, Iruaben Nim. Pendrick thanked Iruaben with awe on his face, while Iruaben received the thanks like it was natural before turning his gaze away. Yes, he was looking back at Kale once again. Why does he keep staring at me? Now both Rayon and Kale were curious. Iruaben, I already told you our weak human is also a coward. Little kid, you should call me Iruaben Nim. I've lived hundreds of years longer than you. Rayon started to frown after being called a little kid again. Kale started to worry, as the way Rayon was looking at Iruben looked like he was about to do something bad. However, he didn't need to worry about that anymore after hearing Iruben's next words. What an odd human. No, should I say amazing? I'm odd. No, amazing. Kale looked toward Iruben with confusion. The gold dragon continued to speak. How are you still alive after having obtained so many ancient powers? Most people would blow up and die. What? Kale became extremely focused after hearing those words, sweeping his concern about Rayon causing trouble away. He could hear Rayon's urgent voice. What? Hey, Goldie, what did you just say? Rayon was shocked. Kale was also shocked. Chapter 124. In fact, everyone was shocked. Did you say die? Mio, Ron, who had been quietly standing to the side, and even Hong, who had been half falling asleep, both looked toward Iruben with shock. None of you knew. However, Iruben's response was so casual that Kale forgot what he was going to say. He had never heard about this before. He did not know that he might end up dying from having too many ancient powers. Iruben clicked his tongue at Kale's gaze and started to speak again. They say that ancient powers are fateful encounters where you need the mandate of heaven to acquire. They are precious powers, even if they may not be that strong. You know that much, right? We know. So, hurry up and explain, Golden Dragon. Bang. Rayon's paw slammed down on the golden table, leaving behind a paw print. How stupid. A dragon doesn't even know this much and needs an explanation. Iruben did not hide his contempt as he scoffed at Rayon and stared. He then waited for Rayon's reaction. I am not stupid. Hurry up and explain. Iruben smiled at Rayon, who was looking at him while waiting for an explanation rather than getting angry. He then started to explain. Many ancient texts and legends have recorded the humans who have held the power of ancient power in the past. But Kale had an ominous feeling. The majority of them only had one ancient power. Why do you think that is the case? Iruben's question was directed at Kale. Kale felt like he knew the answer. Did all the people with multiple powers die? Is that why there are no records of them? Now that he thought about it, there was nobody in The Birth of a Hero who had even two ancient powers. Kale had never questioned that before though. Iruben saw the deep look in Kale's eyes and knew that Kale had come to a conclusion. He then started to speak again. Anybody with more than two ended up dying. That is why they are not in the records. Of course, they could still live if the mandate of heaven allowed them to have multiple ancient powers with the same elemental affinity, but when the ancient powers have different affinities like you have, Iruben stretched out his beautiful white fingers. The human body expands like my fingers are doing right now until they blow up, leaving nothing behind. No. Rayon had a look of despair on his face as he shouted. Rayon slowly turned to look at Kale while banging on the golden table with his paw. Weak human. Why did you keep on eating up those useless things? Huh. The veins in Rayon's short neck were all popping up. You suffered so much. You even coughed up blood. I am amazed by your method of doing things. Pa, don't cover my mouth. Kale casually petted Rayon's face. His gentle touch made Rayon shut up for now. Kale looked around at the worried expressions on everyone's faces before turning back to look at Iruben as he started to speak. But I am still alive. He did not die, even after taking in so many ancient powers. He had a total of 6 ancient powers right now if he included the fire-suppressing water in the absorbing necklace, Iruben agreed with Kale. Yes, you are still alive. Rayon interjected once again. Will you die soon? Kale once again petted Rayon's face and head while Rayon continued to huff and puff. Iruben watched this with curiosity before snorting and starting to speak. Die. No, he is weird and amazing because he has not died yet. The gold dragon pointed to the necklace on Kale's neck. There's water in that necklace, right? Yes. The dominating water was inside the absorbing necklace. Iruben shook his head in disbelief as he looked at Kale. The reptilian vertical pupils of the gold dragon inspected Kale's body. There is the power of wood, the power of wind, and the power of fire. The indestructible shield was the power of wood, the sound of the wind was the power of wind. The fire of destruction was the power of fire. And there is a human power too. The term, human power, made Kale think of his last remaining ancient power. The vitality of the heart. Kale and Iruben made eye contact. Iruben described the last ancient power this unique human had in his possession. Restoration. Kale responded to that word. That power must be what is keeping me alive. Yes. The strong vitality that belonged to an ancient human. The healing abilities of that ancient power are controlling all of the other powers and slowly fusing them all together. The vitality of the heart. Kale recalled how the vitality of the heart that he had gotten to strengthen the indestructible shield had influenced the sound of the wind as well. So, it wasn't strengthening it. It was actually fusing them. I presume that was either the first or second ancient power you picked up. You are correct. It was the second ancient power. That is how you managed to live. Iruben observed Kale as if he was looking at an interesting research specimen. You had the power of restoration before two affinities clashed with each other. Thanks to that, it prevented anything from happening. Iruben made a mental note of the name of the human in front of him. I believe that he said his name was Kale Henitus. Choi Han and Rosalind were not very interesting for the gold dragon. In fact, the pure-blooded wolf boy and the cat children, who also seemed to be pure-blooded but mutated in some way, caught his attention more than Choi Han or Rosalind. But they are not as interesting as this human. The luck to gather 6 ancient powers could not just be considered to be caused by the mandate of heaven. Having that much luck would require a god to give a divine blessing to the human. However, the only divine power Iruben could feel on the human was from a vow of death. What a crazy bastard. Kale was a crazily lucky bastard. He looked at the human who had no problem looking directly at him while talking and felt more curiosity than anger. Then I guess I do not need to worry. Kale's calm expression made Iruben think he was even more amazing. He did not seem shocked at all, despite nearly dying if he'd acquired the ancient powers in a different order. Contrary to Iruben's opinion, Kale's heart was racing. I could have been on my way to the afterlife if I pursued another power first. Kale felt goosebumps rise on his back. At that moment, Iruben spoke again. You can relax for now. For now. Yes. Well, your body is currently a ticking bomb. You'll blow up if your power of restoration falters even slightly. Boom, Rayon's front paw slammed the golden table again. Iruben found it amusing that a dragon despaired over a human's life, but continued after seeing the little dragon's fierce gaze. But there is a way. Kale sensed he knew the answer. Is it Earth? Why was he thinking of that terrifying super rock now? Iruben continued. The water power in your necklace is considered part of you, so you'll stabilize once you find Earth's power and balance your body. All elements will harmonize if collected. So, I must find this super rock. Kale dwelled on the ancient power whose name alone unnerved him. Just then, a stubby paw touched his shoulder. Human, let's find Earth's power immediately. Iruben scoffed. However lucky Kale was to gather 6 ancient powers, collecting all 5 elements bordered on impossible. Little kid, you'd need divine luck to find them. A great and mighty dragon can create something stupid like divine luck. Do you not know about the might of a dragon, Goldie? Iruben looked back toward Kale and asked, why did he grow up like this? I know, right? Kale did not know why Rayon grew up like this either. Human, let's use that book that the elf chief gave you to find the power of Earth. I will definitely find it for you, so do not worry. You will live a long life. Kale held back his sigh at Rayon's voice that was going off in his mind, but ended up sighing in the end. It was because of Iruben. Did you say your name was Kale? Is your family perhaps a dragon-slaying family? What the? What kind of scary and crazy shit are you saying? Kale held back from saying that part. The dragon didn't have that pompous attitude he expected, leading him to almost speak openly, just like he did with the crown prince. No. Of course not. Kale laughed at Iruben's statement and waved his hand. However, he got chills seeing Iruben stare at him without any emotions on his face, and thus could not help but look at the others. Ron, isn't my family just a small noble family? Yes, young Master Nim. Ron avoided the dragon's gaze and answered after a while. It looks weird because you are avoiding his gaze. Kale started to frown. Why was this old assassin acting like this? He then changed his target to Choi Han next. Choi Han, isn't my family's level of strength weak? Iruaben's gaze turned toward Choi Han as well. Choi Han and the gold dragon made eye contact. Thankfully, Choi Han answered in a more relaxed manner than Ron. Yes, it is weak. Kale was satisfied with Choi Han's answer and looked toward Iruaben. The Henadis family was a wealthy family that was average when it came to physical strength. Iruaben asked in a gentle tone, as if he found Kale's confident demeanor to be cute. So, it is not a dragon slayer family? No. How could there be a person who can kill a dragon? Why not? There are actually dragon slayers. A dragon slayer family existed in the past. Iruaben put his chin on top of his clasped hands and slowly continued to speak. It was a crazy family. They did not get scared, even under the influence of dragon fear, and could even stand up against it. That power was only passed down through the family bloodline. The gold dragon found Kale, who had no problem making eye contact with him since the beginning, to be entertaining. An adult dragon had a unique dominating atmosphere around them, even when they did not use dragon fear. Iruaben lowered that atmosphere around him to a minimum for Pendrick, so it made sense for the beast people to be okay, but most humans would still find this level of atmosphere difficult to handle. There was a reason why Ron and Choi Han's responses were a bit delayed, as well as why nobody was saying anything other than when he mentioned that Kale would die. That was why the way the group was looking at Kale was different than before. Iruaben continued to speak to Kale, who did not seem to notice any of this. However, the final successor of that family disappeared, and the Dragon Slayer bloodline ended. Kale felt iffy about the fact that the person had disappeared. But all his doubts vanished after hearing what Iruaben said next. The Dragon Slayer power is a power full of courage. The word courage made Kale smile. It was a power unrelated to him. His only courage came from bluffing, thanks to a scam ancient power like the dominating aura. I see. Anyways, I am not a dragon slayer. Iruaben nodded and accepted it after listening to Kale's stern response. I guess he does not know about it yet. Iruaben did not say anything else after seeing Kale did not seem to know. Most people who challenged dragons in the past would tuck their tails and hide once they saw a dragon that was tens of meters in length. However, there was one human who never cowered and continued to charge at the dragons. He was the greatest dragon hunter. The greatest and only dragon hunter in the past had an aura that dragons both liked and hated. It was because it was a power that could stand face to face with them. Well, I guess that is the case if you say so. Iruaben did not explain everything and just gently smiled. Kale had an ominous feeling after seeing Iruaben smile, but brushed it aside. He did not have any power relating to courage. But more importantly, not again. Kale wanted to sigh after seeing that Iruaben was about to say something else. A ticking bomb and dragon slayers, what could come next? Little kid. Kale relaxed after seeing that Iruaben was talking to Rayon and not him. What is it, old man? Ho. Rayon's sassy response made Iruaben scoff. Did I do well? Yes, you can't just let him look down on you without dishing it back. Kale petted Rayon's head. Iruaben shook his head and casually said what he needed to say. You haven't even reached your first growth phase yet. I am still strong. Iruaben stared at Rayon. There was a reason why he was more benevolent compared to other dragons. Yes, you will definitely be strong in the future. However, if you were to meet another dragon right now, you'd be flattened into a pancake. What? Flattened? Pancake? That would not happen. Rayon strongly objected. However, Rayon slowly avoided Iruaben's gaze and looked up at the lair's ceiling. Iruaben continued to watch Rayon as he started to speak again. You really are not like a dragon. How cute. Rayon looked back at Iruaben and shouted back. What? I am not cute. I will help you. Rayon tilted his head in confusion. He then looked toward Kale with an expression that seemed to be asking, what did I just hear? Kale had a confused look on his face as well. At that moment, the human and dragon duo heard Iruben's voice again. The ancient dragon wanted to pass everything he had to someone else in order to leave his mark on this world before he died. Stay in my lair. Iruben knew that he was dying. He had 5 years to live at maximum. He did not have enough time. The reason that he was benevolent to other dragons was because only another dragon could carry on his legacy. He had now met a dragon that was quite good and cared a lot about friendship. I will pass on everything I have. Any normal dragon would find this to be annoying and decline. They did not want to carry on another dragon's legacy. However, Iruben asked, thinking that this dragon would be different. But he may still decline, since he is a dragon. This little kid was a dragon after all. Iruben was worried that Rayon would decline. Of course, you can decline if you don't want it. I am a generous dragon, so I will not seek to get revenge like other dragons might. So, feel free to say what is on. Iruben stopped talking after looking toward Kale and Rayon. Kale had an odd expression on his face. Rayon also had an odd expression on his face. The former seemed to be confused, while the latter seemed to be excited. Excited. Rayon was talking in Kale's mind while Iruben was being confused by Rayon's expression of excitement. Human, it is free. He said he will give me everything. Rayon was starting to smile the same way Kale smiled every time he sold something to the Crown Prince. Golden Dragon. What is it? You can decline if you'd like, but I think you will be able to learn everything in about 3 months. Is lodging and food free as well? Iruben blinked a few times, wondering if he had heard correctly. Rayon was smiling. Iruben finally managed to speak after a while. What? If you are going to teach me for free, do I get to stay here for free as well? Yes. Rayon pointed to Kale and the rest before asking once more. Is it free for all of us? I guess so. Bang! Rayon slammed down on the golden table with excitement and quickly shouted. Then I'll do it. I'll do it. Rayon started to shout in Kale's mind. Then I will become even stronger. If I get everything that belongs to this golden dragon, I will be at least twice as strong. And it is all for free. Kale smiled awkwardly after seeing that Iruben, unable to understand Rayon's energetic response, looked toward him instead. Ha ha ha, yes, this was good. Kale petted Rayon's head one more time. He felt oddly proud and satisfied. He had taught Rayon well. Chapter 125. Compared to the excited black dragon, the gold dragon was feeling iffy even though he got the response that he had wanted. Teach me everything. Teach me everything that you know. Iruben looked at how excited Rayon was and quietly mumbled back. I plan to do that. Great idea. Don't you agree, weak human? Yes, yes. Iruben had lived for close to 1,000 years, but had never seen such a combination like this human who was nodding his head and the dragon that was flapping his wings. Am I making the right decision? He questioned it for a moment, but quickly stopped doubting himself as he did not have much time left. This was fate as well. He happened to meet a young dragon while in his twilight years, and that dragon was one that was not like normal dragons. What else could this be if it was not fate? He started to laugh, thinking about how he had never expected such an odd situation. Might as well pass everything on since I am going to die soon. Although Iruben was laughing as he said that, silence quickly filled the area. However, Iruben could feel the gazes that were focused on him. What? Goldie, what did you just say? Excuse me? Dragon Nim, what are you talking about? Rayon flew in front of Iruben's face and started to shout, while Pendrick was shaking, as if he had heard the declaration for the destruction of the world. Rayon flew around and looked over Iruben's body as he asked. Are you poisoned? Did someone curse you? Did you get hurt while fighting? Iruben felt odd hearing the shocked and concerned voice of this little dragon. However, he pushed Rayon away with his hand. Little kid, does it make sense for a dragon to suffer from such things? Not at all. Iruben then flinched at Rayon's continued words. Then why are you dying? Don't die. You're the only other dragon I know. The gold dragon's expression became difficult to read. He seemed like he was about to laugh, but also like he was in disbelief. Iruben avoided Rayon's passionate gaze only to end up making eye contact with Kale. May I ask why you are sick? I've just become weak with age. Iruben waved it off, but Kale started to worry. Since we're getting something from him. Kale started to think back to see if there was an ancient power that could help. Iruben petted Pendrick, who seemed to be in a chaotic state from the sudden news, on the head. He recalled when Chief Canaria had brought this elf who could not see elementals with her to the lair. He was curious about Pendrick's unique disposition and had saved this dying elf to satisfy his curiosity. This child had started to follow Iruben around after that. Feeling Pendrick's sincerity, Iruben began treating him with gentleness rather than curiosity. Pendrick, all things of the world are bound to get old and die. Nothing can overcome death. Well, there are ways of controlling death. How? Iruben was calm while Pendrick was anxious. You need to follow the darkness. Like the Lich. Ah. Pendrick gasped. Iruben quickly added, of course, I have no plans to do that. However, some dragons in the past had ended up doing it. Iruben understood why, but he still disagreed with their decisions. Necromancers would eventually die, and dark elves would die too. Yet a lich felt no pain and never died of old age. The difference was stark. But it is still a while away, so there is no need to worry now. I understand. Iruben saw the teary Pendrick nod. At that moment, Rayon's voice cut in. Hey, Golden Dragon. What? Iruben turned to Rayon, hearing his serious tone. Rayon shared his thoughts. I will find a way for you to live a very long time because I am great and mighty. Just wait. Iruben just stared at Rayon and ignored what Rayon had just said. However, he had to use his fingers to prevent himself from smiling as he looked toward Kale. Can all of you stay here for about 3 months? Kale Henitus, I heard that you were a noble. It should be fine for us to stay here for a bit. Kale thought about his promise with Latana after hearing Iruben's question. Latana, the queen of the jungle, had said she wanted to meet with Kale in order to pay him back for his help. Human. Kale turned his gaze over to Rayon after hearing his voice. He then flinched, as Rayon's eyes looked vicious. Human, I do not wish to be here alone. Rayon did not even wait for Kale's reaction as he turned toward Iruben. The dragon-like glare made Iruben let out an interested gasp as he made eye contact with Rayon. Rayon then started to speak. This weak human only sleeps on the most luxurious and soft beds. He likes fruits and only eats the highest quality meat. You want me to prepare it? Aren't you the owner of this place? Didn't you say that everything would be free? A great and mighty dragon just requires a flick of their hand to prepare all of those things. That is true. At that moment, Iruben wondered why he had to do all of this, even in his old age. I've grown too old. He had become too nice. How did he, someone who used to beat up those arrogant dragons so that they would be stuck to their beds licking their wounds for at least a month, end up like this? However, Rayon didn't care about what Iruben was thinking about as he turned back toward Kale. Human, don't you need to go meet with the queen of the jungle? Yes. Hurry back. I will give you 1 week. Okay. Rayon snickered after hearing Kale's response and returned to the couch next to Kale to lay down on the fluffy cushion. That made Kale let out a sigh. Hiya. Iruben let out a gasp as well. At that moment, Kale and Iruben made eye contact again. Although they were almost 1,000 years apart, they felt a sense of connection with each other. Kale then started to speak. Then I will be back. Sure. Iruben let out a sigh and responded, before casually adding to Kale, who was getting up from the couch, as well as the rest of the group preparing to follow him. It doesn't matter whether you come and go, but be quiet while you're here. I'm a bit sensitive. I accepted all of you because the little kid demanded it, but be careful. The gold dragon noticed Kale and Rayon giving him the same odd look. What are you staring at? Kale slowly shook his head. No, nothing at all. Rayon then spoke into Kale's mind. That golden dragon doesn't seem all that sensitive, though, Kale agreed. Iruben didn't appear sensitive at all. Like Rayon, he seemed unlike a typical dragon. Iruaben, perhaps unsettled by Kale's gaze, added quickly, also, I'll only teach the little kid. I won't instruct anyone else, no matter how much you beg. Well, I'm curious about the beast children, but no. Kale understood perfectly. He'll teach us if we plead. His gaze shifted to Rosalind and the beast children. Rosalind met his eyes and smiled, she'd grasped it too. Kale smirked slyly. Why are you smiling like that? This is my way of agreeing with you, Iruaben Nim. Iruaben found it suspicious. He couldn't fathom Kale's thoughts, but Kale was already envisioning how Rayon and the rest would extract every possible advantage from this dragon over the next 3 months. He had thought that this dragon would be scary, but it just ended up being a nice old man who continued to help them out, even as he grumbled. Human, I do not know why you are smiling like that again, but you need to hurry back. I got it. I'll only take a few people and come back soon. Kale responded to Rayon's repeated question but suddenly felt nervous after thinking about the group that would go to the jungle with him. The next day, Kale figured out the source of that nervousness. Enjoy your trip, human. Don't step in to take action and get hurt again. They were standing in front of Iruaben's lair. Kale was not paying attention to any of Rayon's concerned statements, as he was currently deep in thought. I knew that something was weird. Kale's gaze turned toward the group that would be going with him. First of all, to traverse the path of no return, one of the 5 forbidden regions, he needed On with him. On was currently saying goodbye to Hong. Kale walked past On and toward the others, Choi Han, Bcrox, and Ron. It was a combination that he couldn't help but groan about. Should I have brought Hans instead? Kale thought about Hans, whom he had left back in the Abar territory. An unknown coldness made Kale shiver. Young Master Nim, are you okay? Ron approached him, pretending to be a nice old man. Yes, I'm okay. I'm glad that you are okay. Please let me know if you start to feel sick. Ron maintained his benign smile. In a way, it's nice to travel with only a few people like this. It has been a while since we have done so. It's not nice at all. Kale looked at Bcrox, who was putting on white gloves as usual, and contemplated this team composition. It seems like the perfect group to go do some bad things. Bcrox must have noticed Kale's uncertainty, as he brushed his hands off and approached him. Young Master Nim, we should be able to head out now. Sure, let's go. Rayon and the others said goodbye as Kale and the group headed toward Hoik village, located at the southern end of the Whipper Kingdom. This was the entrance to the path of no return, it just had to be raining. It is similar to last time. The silver kitten On, in Kale's arms, hummed as she controlled the fog. Kale's group walked inside the path of no return. Even the rain couldn't dispel this odd fog. Shaya, the downpour drowned out On's humming. Drip. 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 Kale grew annoyed by the rain pelting his raincoat. Bcrox approached him. It's late and the rain is heavy. Young Master Nim, we should spend the night in the forest. Kale nodded. On, let's head back to that cave from last time. It's nearby. Seeing On manipulate the fog again, Kale signaled the others to follow. Ron, Choi Han, and Bcrox tightened their raincoats and trailed behind. Choi Han walked beside Kale. Are you heading to the cave where you met Queen Litananim? Yes, that one. It was a memorable place where Kale had pretended to be benevolent, acting as everything he wasn't. I have some good memories there. On seemed to recall it too, shaking her head while controlling the fog. Moving briskly, they soon spotted the cave. It's over there. On, pointing ahead, halted abruptly. Ron stepped closer. Someone seems to be inside. A faint light emanated from the cave. Kale hesitated, then spoke. It's too late to go elsewhere now. Let's head there for now. It was annoying to go look for another location. It was raining, it was dark, he was hungry, and he didn't want to walk anymore. Since there really wasn't anywhere else to go, they might as well spend a night with some strangers. As you wish, Kale Nim. Thankfully, I do not feel any strong auras in there. Kale quickly answered after hearing Choi Han's comment. Let's go. They didn't have anything to lose. Drip. Drip. The rain started to pummel their raincoats harder as they quickly headed to the cave. The faint light started to get stronger, and they could see the entrance. I can finally rest. Kale was about to walk even faster with that thought in mind when he heard Choi Han's voice. It's a familiar aura. What? Kale could see the entrance as he heard Choi Han's comment. He spotted a small fire lighting up the inside. There were 2 people inside. Son of a, Kale rubbed his eyes. Who are you? One of the people asked in a shaking voice. A weak and innocent-looking man stared at Kale and the others. Not only were the man's eyes pure, but they seemed teary as well, making him appear pitiful. But that was not the problem. Why is she over here? There was a blonde woman lying on the ground beside the innocent-looking blonde man. He had seen her before, the blonde sword master from the secret organization who killed the blood-crazy mage, Retica. That woman was stained black in multiple spots on her body and lay unconscious. Clang, a faint noise reached Kale's ear. Choi Han had begun drawing his sword from its scabbard. Kale felt like someone had punched him. What the hell is going on? At that moment, he made eye contact with Ron. What's wrong? Ron's gaze seemed to ask. Kale's mind cleared. Oh, right. That woman does not know my face. The blonde sword master did not know Kale's face, or anybody else's for that matter. She had only seen them with their masks on. Perfect. Kale put a hand on Choi Han's shoulder. Choi Han, put your sword away. Excuse me. But. Kale whispered to the confused Choi Han. Hide your aura. The woman might sense it if she woke later. Instead of acknowledging Choi Han's bewilderment, Kale turned toward the unconscious sword master and the blonde, innocent-looking man beside her. He offered the man a gentle smile as On meowed in his arms. Meow, it seemed like a callback to last time, but Kale dismissed her opinion now. Choi Han had confirmed no strong aura lingered in the cave, meaning this man, unlike the blonde sword master, was weak. Kale removed his raincoat hood and addressed him softly. I'm sorry. Did we scare you? His tone was sincere, almost unsettlingly so, making Choi Han flinch. Ron stepped forward then. Neither he, Beacrox, nor On had engaged the enemy during the battle with the whale tribe, so they didn't recognize the sword master's face. Still, Kale trusted Ron's composure. I apologize. Our young Master Nimsgard is very dedicated to his job, Ron said warmly, embodying the perfect servant. Kale locked eyes with Ron and Beacrox. The father-son duo gave subtle nods. Asterisk, we don't know what's happening, but we'll play along. Asterisk, that silent pact struck Kale as profoundly reliable. For the first time, he appreciated this team's configuration. Chapter 126. Really a good person. Anybody would think that this was a normal noble young master traveling alongside his servant and his guard. No. It was originally that kind of combination. Kale recalled this fact that he had forgotten about and smiled gently toward the blonde man. However, things did not go as he had expected. The men became even warier of Kale. His pupils were shaking quite a bit while looking at Ron. The men stared at Ron's left arm. Ron's left arm was the arm made by the necromancer, Mary. Although it was not visible because Ron usually wore a long-sleeve shirt and black gloves, the blonde man was still staring at that covered left arm. His expression was full of uncertainty, wariness, and chaos. It was as if he knew that the arm was fake and made of the darkness attribute. Just looking at it was enough for this man to realize that it had the darkness affinity. Oh, Kale had a suspicion. His gaze headed over to the blonde man and the blonde woman. They looked different, but oddly similar at the same time, as if they were siblings. He suddenly thought of something. Magic bomb, and one more thing. The Church of the Sun God, and finally, the Saint and the Holy Maiden. Damn it, really, why did he have to have such a suspicion? Kale made up his mind. Let's pretend not to know anything and just be civil. However, that feeling did not seem to be shared by the other party. I will not be tricked. The blonde man went over and hugged the blonde sword master while staring at Kale's group, specifically, Ron. However, his innocent eyes that looked like one of a young horse that was drenched in the rain, just seemed pitiful rather than intimidating. I am not sure what you are talking about. We are not tricking you about anything. We just happened to be passing by. Ron, who had his usual smile as he slowly approached the blonde man, seemed like the typical villain to Kale. Don't come here. The blonde man seemed unable to hear anything as he picked up the woman and slowly started moving backward. Ugh. Ah. The unconscious woman let out a moan. The blonde man stopped moving backward and quickly put her back down. His gaze, fixed on the woman, burned with anger and resentment as he shouted, "You evil beings. First you throw dead mana bombs, and now you've contacted a necromancer." He seems mistaken. Kale realized this person, likely the saint, had misunderstood. Tap. Tap. On tapped his arm, and Kale looked down to see her questioning gaze. Don't we need to intervene? No, not yet. Kale shook his head. His intuition urged patience. In such situations, those with misconceptions often revealed useful information. Besides, he needed clarity. Dead mana bombs. Could bombs be made from dead mana? Suspecting the secret organization might have developed such weapons, Kale observed silently. Ron acted precisely as Kale hoped, smiling gently while deliberately stepping closer. I truly don't understand your accusations, sir. You've misjudged us. Ron's feigned innocence provoked the men into a desperate shout, his voice resigned to death. I'll protect Hannah now. How dare you commit such atrocities in the Empire's name? What? The sun god's mace won't spare you. Veins bulged on his forehead as he raged. The sun will know of our grudge. What is this punk talking about? Kale's mind became a bit chaotic. However, the blonde man seemed to have gotten past his fear as he continued to shout without stopping. Although his face looked innocent, his voice was as loud as a train's horn. Although I may just be the half with the healing abilities, I will not stand still. In the end, Kale had to cut the man off. Hold on. Ha. I will not stop, even if you try to prevent me from saying any. Hey, hold on. The low but strong voice made the blonde man shut up for a moment. The red-haired man seemed to be annoyed as he let out a strong aura. The pressure from the aura made the blonde man freeze up. It was now quiet in the cave, other than the sound of the rain. Kale could finally start to sort things out in his head. His brain quickly started to process everything. The dead mana bomb is a product of the Empire, and these blondes were currently being chased by the Empire. Kale's gaze headed over to the blonde woman. The blonde man must have noticed this as he hurriedly hugged the woman, but Kale had already verified what he needed to verify. There was a good chance that the black marks on her body were the result of being exposed to dead mana. This is bad. Kale had never expected that the Empire would have developed something like a dead mana bomb. The novel had not discussed such a thing. Young Master Nim. Ron's voice made Kale gather his thoughts and look back toward the blonde man. The man flinched at Kale's gaze, but bit down on his lips and started to shout. I will not give in. However, the man could not hide his anxiety as the red-haired man slowly approached him. He had not felt such a strong aura in a long time. It was not just the aura of a strong person, but that of a ruler. Squeak. Squeak. Kale's wet shoes continued to squeak as he approached the blonde man. The blonde man could see that the red-haired man was right in front of him now. He needed to protect Hannah, his younger sister. The blonde man had always been baggage for his younger sister, had ended up being used by the church, and was now being chased by the Empire after being framed. He was disappointed in himself. The red-haired man approached him and looked down at him. That gaze made the blonde man get the chills. The red-haired man, Kale, slowly started to speak. Was she injured by the poison from dead mana? What? He wanted to shout and say, what bullshit. However, Kale handed an item to the blonde man. It is a highest grade potion. This should be able to prevent the dead mana from spreading. But you know this already, right? For this man who had lost everything, this highest grade potion was what he had been desperately praying for. This was the real thing. The blonde man, the saint of the Church of the Sun God, could not use his healing abilities on his dying younger sister. The power of the sun would burn the darkness. Using healing on his sister would lead to his sister being purified along with the darkness instead of healing her. The blond man, the saint, could see the red-haired man smiling gently. The red-haired man then pointed to the person that he had introduced as his servant. I know a bit about it as our servant had been injured by dead mana before. Right, Ron. Kale pointed to Ron's left arm as he asked. Ron answered without even having a change in his expression. Yes, sir. My left arm and body were injured severely. We barely managed to fix it. Fix it? The saint's face turned odd, but Kale pretended not to notice as he continued to take out more highest-grade potions from his magic bag. He had a ton of these highest-grade potions. Rayon had packed his bag full of them, to the point that it was scary. However, Kale only took out 10 of them before putting on an awkward smile as he looked back at the blond man. This is all that I have on me. Oh, these potions were made by the Roan Kingdom's Church of the God of Death. How about you use these to treat the lady as we resolve this little misunderstanding? The saint's pupils started to shake. He had not seen such a genuine smile in a long time. The red-haired man who wore that sincere expression said something that resonated deeply. Isn't human life the most important thing? The saint quietly stared at the uncapped potion handed to him. His younger sister had often told him, Appa, your problem is that you trust people too much. You trust people too easily and speak without suspicion. Stop being like that. Though I suppose that's one of your strengths. Don't worry, I am strong, so I will protect you. He needed to save his sister. Just then, the red-haired man continued, by the way, my name is Kale Henitus, and I am from the Roan Kingdom. The blond man spotted a small badge bearing a golden turtle crest. Kale Henitus. Yes. Kale replied in a tone both gentle and firm. He needed this man, and the woman who'd wake later, to see him as a passing noble, not the imposter from a secret organization. Playing the clueless young master, he eyed the suspected saint. You were Sir Kale. The blond man's reaction surprised Kale. You are right. That red hair. Now I understand why you came to the path of no return. Grab! The blond man seized both the potion and Kale's hand. Kale began to pull away slowly. Do I know you? You see, the man flashed an innocent smile. Kale marveled at his sudden shift in demeanor. The villagers of Hoik village told me about you. They said that you helped the villagers get closure and taught them about the secrets of the forest. I did do that. Hoik village was the village at the entrance of the path of no return. Kale had bypassed the village to come straight to the forest this time. Ever since that happened, the villagers have shared the story about young Master Kale Henitus whenever a traveler arrives in time. I happened to overhear it when I was hid. Anyways, I happened to hear about it. I guess he was hiding out around the village and happened to hear it. They described you as a wise and charismatic noble who had a warm heart. That's quite the praise. That kind of description did not fit Kale at all. He had left things for Hans and the vice captain to take care of as he headed over to deal with the fire in the jungle. He now seriously wondered how the two of them had taken care of things. However, Kale had to focus on the men in front of him right now. The blond man seemed to have calmed down a bit, as he started to speak with a relaxed expression. Yes, Queen Latananim always brought you up whenever she talked about a good person. Who? What the hell is he talking about? Why does the saint know about Latana? That. The men seemed to have realized his mistake as he put on an awkward expression and started to make up an excuse. The Queen of the Jungle. We had a conversation with her when we went to the jungle in the past. She's just someone we know. It definitely did not sound like they just had a simple interaction. The saint quickly continued to speak. My younger sister and I are just your average people. We were helped by the Queen. How could he say such an obvious lie? Kale held back his sigh and nodded his head. I see. Let us heal her first. Yes. Ron, help him. Yes, young Master Nim. The saint flinched when Ron approached, but bowed his head after seeing Ron carefully take out a cloth to help him. Kale observed the two of them before standing up. Then I will step outside for a moment. Choi Han. Yes, Kale Nim. Kale pointed to the entrance of the cave. Stand there and protect them. Yes, Kale Nim. Listening to Choi Han's half-assed answer and seeing the increased level of trust in the saint's eyes, Kale wondered how this extremely trusting saint would continue to live in this world as he patted Beacrox on the shoulder. Let's go look around the area. It would be bad if a wild animal or monster showed up while they're tending to the patient. Yes sir, I understand. Beacrox responded like a trustworthy guard and followed behind Kale. Kale walked by Choi Han, who was standing at the entrance, and quietly whispered, Choi Han, keep your eye on them. Choi Han finally seemed to understand, nodding his head with a serious expression. Yes, Kale Nim. I will do my best to guard them. Choi Han's bad acting showed itself again. Kale, as well as Beacrox, ignored Choi Han and headed out of the cave. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle, making it tolerable to stand outside with raincoats on. Beacrox. Yes sir. I don't have a mage to use the video communication device. I'll give you a message to deliver. Beacrox asked with a stoic expression. For Tunka. Kale was touched. Beacrox seemed to understand his thoughts without detailed explanation. It would be too disadvantageous for Tunka's side to fight the Empire unaware of their dead mana bombs. He couldn't withhold this information. Yes. Deliver the message to Tunka. Don't you think they need this intel to fight evenly? However, contrary to Kale's expectation, Beacrox said something else. You seem to be worried about him. Who? Tunka. Yes sir. Kale was silent for a moment before he started to speak again. Just don't say anything and go. Beacrox's stoic expression slowly turned into a smile as he nodded his head. It was an expression that seemed to say that he really couldn't do anything about this young master of his. Kale did not give any other explanation, even after seeing Beacrox's expression. Kale knew about Tunka's battle tactics. He was the type to just push aside his injured soldiers and move forward. Tunka was the type to think that it was only natural for weak people to be left behind, injured, or killed. Harrell was the same way. Both Harrell and Tunka just did whatever they felt like doing. Harrell's greed revolved around getting rid of magic on the entire continent, while Tunka's greed revolved around fighting and getting stronger. The people under them shouldn't have to suffer just because their leaders are a mess. If he was worried about anybody, it was not Tunka, but the soldiers following Tunka's orders. Who would be the most injured by those bombs? Furthermore, it was difficult to recover from being poisoned by dead mana. You needed to use highest grade potions in order to prevent the dead mana from spreading. Would Harrell use highest grade potions on their soldiers? What about Tunka? Absolutely not. Tunka was the type to completely ignore Kale if Kale had acted like a weakling. Kale gave an order to Beacrox, who was waiting for his command. You don't need to go all the way to Tunka. Rosalind is nearby, so deliver the message to her and she'll be able to relay the message. That will be faster. Oh, and tell Prince Alberu as well. Yes sir. I understand. Rosalind and Beacrox together would be able to take care of everything properly. Beacrox showed a bit of curiosity as he asked in a quiet voice, Young Master Nim, they are? I presume that they are the twins from the Church of the Sun God. The two on the run. Kale observed Beacrox's expression for a bit before starting to speak. Yes. And that woman in there is the sword master from the secret organization that we fought against at the Heis Islands. That woman. Yes. So hurry back. I will take care of making an excuse for your departure. The corner of Beacrox's lips started to twist. The secret organization had brought his father to the brink of death. Kale casually commented to Beacrox, who was quickly turning angry. Trust me and run and hurry back. That's very reassuring. Beacrox nodded his head. His father and young Master Kale would be fine. Furthermore, they had the strong Choi Han with them, so there should be no dangerous situations. Mio on meowed in order to show that she was there as well. Beacrox smiled and reached his hand out to Kale. Please give me the message. Kale sent Beacrox off with the message and slowly headed back to the cave. Kale Nim, you're back. Yes. Kale entered the cave while being greeted by Choi Han. Ron still had his benign smile on his face. Choi Han and Ron did not say anything, even though Beacrox was not with Kale. Kale quickly approached the saint, who was worriedly looking at the blonde sword master. "How is it? Is the lady doing a bit better?" "Ah, yes. The dead mana in her body is slowly." It was at that moment, while the saint was speaking with a bright expression, that something happened. The blonde sword master let out a moan. Her eyelashes started to flutter as if she would open her eyes soon. "Ha, Hannah." The saint called out what Kale presumed to be the sword master's name as the woman slowly opened her eyes. "Appa." "Hannah." The saint called out his sister's name and hugged her. Kale wrote something on Ron's palm while the twins were having their moment. Part of arm. Ron's gaze turned cold while Kale pretended not to know anything as he smiled at the saint who was looking at him. "I'm relieved. Young Master Nim, my sister is awake thanks to you." "Thank you very much." Kale received a look of gratitude from the saint, as well as a look of confusion from the sword master, as he put on his most noble-like smile. There was still a lot of things that he needed to find out from the two of them. Chapter 127. Kale needed to learn more about their current situation, as well as why Latana's name came out of the saint's mouth, and why the Empire was using dead mana as a weapon, even though it could be poisonous for them as well. "Appa." The sword master, Hannah, called out to the saint in a sleepy voice. However, Hannah's eyes were focused on Kale, Choi Han, and Ron. Kale was also checking Hannah's condition. "She's at the beginning stages of the dead mana poison." He could see that the injuries on her body were dyed black. The dead mana bomb that she was hit with seemed to take a liquid form. The liquid must have landed on her injuries in order to poison her. She must have survived until now because she is a sword master. Sword masters have strong vitality. Her aura was probably preventing the dead mana from spreading inside of her body. However, the sword master was currently in a weakened state. Kale automatically started to form a gentle smile on his face. That made the woman wary. Who are these people? She barely regained consciousness, but she still seemed to be having a difficult time communicating. Her entire body was covered in sweat, and she barely managed to speak. "I cough, HAAA." The sword master's shoulders flinched, and she coughed up black blood. The saint quickly brought his hands up to her mouth. "Hannah. Don't speak. Didn't I tell you not to let strangers in?" The woman glared at the saint and tried to sit up. At that moment, a white cloth was placed at her mouth. "You're bleeding. Please relax, I will explain everything." A warm voice reached Hannah's ears. Kale wiped the black blood off her mouth. "I should collect the black blood and ask the dragon later." Kale made up his mind to ask Iruben once he got back and gently spoke to the wary enemy. "I was touched by how desperate your appa was as he was trying to save your life. So please focus on your health first. Here is a potion, young Master Nim." Ron handed Kale a new potion right on cue. Kale was in awe while looking at Ron, who was acting just like a benign old man, as if he had never had that cold gaze in his eyes. Wow, he's so good. This was completely different than when he was traveling with Choi Han, Rosalind, and the children who averaged 8 years of age. Kale handed the potion to the saint with a relaxed expression. Hannah's mind became chaotic while watching all of this. It was weird that a noble young master-like person and his servant were in this path of no return. Who the hell are these people? At that moment, Hannah could hear her brother's gentle voice. "Hannah, be respectful. These people are not like that." Hannah looked toward her brother after feeling like he was scolding her. She was worried what her brother, who was completely innocent to the point of stupidity, had done while she was unconscious. However, the saint's expression was bright for the first time in a long time. "Hannah, he is someone that you know as well. Remember hearing about Kale Henitus in Hoik village? He is Kale Henitus, and those are his servant and his knights." "Kale Henitus." Hannah's eyes headed toward the red-haired man. The saint continued to speak in an excited voice. "Yes. You explained it to me. You said that he was the great hero who stepped up to protect the Roan kingdom during the terror incident." Hannah's eyes had an unexplainable look to them. Kale slightly lowered his head as if he was embarrassed at how she was staring at him. He then started to think to himself. Great hero my ass. I was an annoying enemy to her. As a member of the secret organization, Kale was not the Roan Kingdom's hero, but one of the pests who got in their way. But Kale was able to confirm one thing from the Saint's statements. The Saint is not a member of the secret organization. If he was, he would not be acting so stupidly. That is why young Master Kalenim gave us the potions and has his knight protecting us. Are you really that Kale Henitus? Kale put on an awkward smile at her gaze that seemed to be full of doubt. Yes. It is embarrassing, but I am indeed that Kale Henitus. Young Master Silver Shield. It had been a long time since he had heard this embarrassing nickname that came out of the Sword Master's mouth. However, Kale needed to give her faith right now. Pot, a small shield appeared with a silver glow. Oh! The Saint was amazed, while the Sword Master seemed to be a bit relieved. Kale looked toward her and asked, "Do you trust me now?" "Well, I guess so." "Then please get some rest, as you are still in a state of danger." Kale started to speak with a reliable look on his face. "We will stand guard tonight. I do not know why you are in your current situation, but I believe it is a noble's duty to protect the weak and troubled." The Saint was full of admiration, while the Sword Master had a look of relief. Ron then played along properly. "Young Master Nim, you are right. We are different than those evil bastards who caused the terror incident in the capital. We need to work hard in order to save others and to be different than those people who aim to kill others." The Sword Master nodded her head and agreed. "You are right." Oh, I didn't expect for her to agree. Kale did not expect her to agree with Ron's statement. However, he got an odd feeling after hearing what she had to say next. Those bastards need their blood sucked dry until they die. So scary. Kale felt like this woman must have been betrayed by the organization. Yet he asked with a casual expression, as if he had not heard her remark. "But how did you end up in the path of no return? It will be dangerous if you get lost." Silence suddenly filled the cave. The Saint looked at his sister with a look of anxiety, while the Sword Master just quietly looked up at the ceiling. That allowed Kale to make his assumptions. They must be on their way to meet with Latana. The Queen of the Jungle's name probably did not slip out of the Saint's mouth for no reason. It was obvious. His assumptions were proved to be true very quickly. Mio An, who had been guiding Beacrox to the entrance of the forest, walked into the cave. She then immediately headed for Kale and urgently tapped on his arm. At the same time, Choi Han, who was still standing at the entrance of the cave, called out to Kale. "Young Master Nim, there is a light approaching in the distance." "What?" Kale walked toward the entrance of the cave with shock. The rain had gotten strong again. There was a light approaching the cave in the middle of the night even during this terrible rain. Kale finally understood why the Saint, who had to hide with his injured sister, still lit a fire inside the cave. At that moment, Choi Han whispered in a quiet voice that would be drowned out by the rain so that only Kale could hear. "I heard this during our battle at the elf village." Choi Han recalled what the magic spearman had said while they were fighting. "I'm already busy because of those blonde twins. Why are these bastards always getting in my way?" He repeated the magic spearman's words to Kale. Kale patted Choi Han's shoulders and turned around. His gaze was headed toward the pair of siblings. "They seem to be your guests. Am I right?" The Saint looked toward the Sword Master, who got up while struggling and looked toward Kale with her face that was dyed black by the dead mana in multiple spots. "Yes, they are probably our guests." Kale could see the people approaching the cave as soon as Hannah answered. "Young Master Kale. Long time no see, Miss Latana." Latana, the Queen of the Jungle, was standing there with a glowing orb in her hand. Instead of looking at the shocked Latana, Kale was looking at the crest on the orb. It was the crest of the sun god. The light inside the orb was in the shape of an arrow pointing toward the location of the Saint. Kale slowly turned around and looked toward the Saint. "It is the crest of the sun god. Why is that pointing to you?" "That, you see, young Master Kale, now that I think about it, the two of you look like siblings, no, like twins." Kale, looking at the Saint who stood there quietly with an awkward expression, let out a sigh. "Ha, I think I understand how Miss Lena got here without getting lost. I also think I know who the two of you are. Young Master Kale. Latana approached Kale after seeing the stiff expression on his face. She had never seen such a look on Kale before. He seemed to be hiding complicated thoughts. Kale did not look at Latana, instead speaking as if mumbling to himself. I helped you because I thought it was right, but the people I helped, sorrow filled Kale's face. Why did they have to be the ones responsible for the Church of the Sun God's terror incident? How could you do this to me? No. The saint's voice echoed in the cave. Appa, calm down. The sword master calmed the saint, and Kale made eye contact with her. His gaze burned with anger, as if deeply upset. Kale then looked toward Latana and spoke. I'm sure there was a reason. Young Master Kale. If it's the Miss Lena I know, she would never help people responsible for such a tragedy. Kale pointed toward the siblings. I also think, no, I want to believe, that siblings who care so deeply for each other would never do such a thing. The saint's eyes filled with tears of admiration. Latana was the same way. She vigorously nodded her head and answered back. Do not worry, young Master Kale. You are indeed right about me. Yes, young Master Nim. We did not come here with bad intentions. One of Latana's loyal subordinates added on. Kale struggled to smile after hearing their responses and nodded his head. Latana seemed relieved after seeing his actions as she approached the siblings. At that moment, Kale secretly made eye contact with Ron. Ron stealthily gave him a thumbs up and had a satisfied look on his face, while Choi Han was looking at Kale with a blank expression. This much was nothing. Kale gave a gaze that seemed to be saying that before turning to look at Latana, who was speaking to him. Young Master Kale, you should listen to their story with me. That is okay. I feel like it will be burdensome for me. He declined once to start, acting as if he did not want to get involved. It is not because we need your help. It was something I planned to tell you when I saw you again anyway. Kale nodded his head after hearing that she did not need his help. Is there something I need to be aware of? Young Master Kale, do you remember the fire in the jungle? Why is she suddenly talking about the fire? Yes, I remember. It was terrible. It really was. We found the culprits responsible for starting that fire. Kale quickly figured out what the twins used to approach Latana. The Imperial Prince had caused the fire in the jungle. They probably called her out with this information. However, Kale pretended like he didn't know anything. I presume these siblings are not the culprit. Yes, it is as you suspect. They were the ones who told me about the culprit. Kale looked toward the twins with disbelief. At that moment, the sword master started to speak to the saint. Appa, tell them everything. Okay. The saint started to speak with a determined look on his face. Although we are known as a saint and a holy maiden, I am a saint who only has half of the divine abilities, and my sister Hannah is not a holy maiden at all. She was raised as a swordsman, as she was talented with the sword. The saint showed his anger toward the church. The church used the two of us and proclaimed that we were both born with divine abilities and made us live as the saint and holy maiden. That was why we were never able to even see the world. Kale held back his smirk. What lies? He couldn't believe the casual look on Hannah's face. Hannah, who was leaning on the cave wall to stand, had been all over the world as a member of the secret organization. The saint continued to speak while Kale observed Hannah. Some unknown organization threw a magic bomb into the church and the church was ruined. The Empire then claimed that we were in cahoots with the organization and started to chase us down. Then you are saying that you did not cause that incident? The saint nodded his head at Latana's question. Yes, it was not us. However, the Empire said that it was us because they wanted to get rid of the two of us. Why would they want to do that? The saint was quiet for a moment before he started to respond. It was because of the information the church was planning on revealing during the celebration. Everybody else who knew about the information was killed by the bomb. What information is that? Latana urged the saint on, as if this was the information she had been waiting for. However, the answer came from the sword master instead. The Empire used alchemy to make a bomb out of dead mana. They were also responsible for the giant fire in the jungle. The saint added on. The church planned on using that proclamation to suppress the throne. Kale finally understood why the Church of the Sun God had agreed to have their celebration together with a celebration for alchemy. They were aiming for something. But a bomb suddenly went off and we were blamed as the perpetrators right before the proclamation. The Empire must have been aware that we had that information. That is why we are being unfairly chased down like this, and Hannah ended up hurt. Ugh. The saint's eyes started to turn red as if he wanted to cry. Kale quietly stood there while listening to everything that they had said. However, his mind was quickly processing the information. It seems like something between the Empire and the Church of the Sun God, so why is the secret organization in the middle of it? He wondered if one of the sides was involved with the organization. What about that woman? Kale's gaze headed back toward Hannah. The saint was venting at this point. We were used. It is so unfair. The sword master Hannah started to mumble. Yes, we were used by everyone and betrayed by everyone who we considered to be family. Her choice of word, everyone, let Kale know that there was someone else other than the church and the empire. Latana started to speak at that moment. Then are you asking us to protect you in exchange for that information? The saint nodded his head. Yes. We currently have information about the alchemist's bell tower. I will give this to you, so please find a way for us to leave to the eastern continent. The twins' plan was to run away to the eastern continent. At that moment, Hannah's voice filled the cave. Please just send my brother there. Hannah, what are you talking about? What about you? The saint looked toward his sister with confusion. However, the sword master had a serious look on her face. I'm going to die anyways. Contrary to their original plan, Hannah was poisoned by dead mana. She would die on their way to the eastern continent. No. Don't say that, Hannah. I'll save you. The saint's desperate voice did nothing. As Hannah quietly stood there while looking at the ceiling, Latana looked toward the siblings with a complicated expression on her face. At that moment, a calm voice started to speak. What, are you going to get revenge? It was Kale. The blonde sword master, who had been looking up at the ceiling, turned her gaze toward Kale. Kale looked back at the blonde sword master as he continued to speak. You look like that is your plan. The woman responded back. And if I am? She did not hide her intentions. Her body may be dying, but her eyes were full of anger and betrayal. Hannah. Getting revenge on the Empire? You told me not to do it. Right, revenge on the Empire. You cannot do that. You said I couldn't, so why are you? Hannah closed her mouth again. However, Kale understood her intentions because he knew about her identity. She was not planning to get revenge against the Empire. She was planning to get revenge on someone else. Kale recalled what Choi Han had said to him. The magic spearman said that he had a lot of work because of the blonde twins. I believe that he was talking about the two of them. The woman had been betrayed by the secret organization as well. Hannah, say something. We need to say something. There's no point in living alone. The saint's sorrowful voice could not make Hannah speak. She closed her eyes again only to hear Kale's voice again. Excuse me. Miss Hannah. She wanted to ignore the voice of the hero of the Roan Kingdom, the good and sincere Kale Henitus. However, she could not do that. Do you want to make that revenge a success? Kale started to smile after seeing Hannah open her eyes in shock to look at him. Just what? Since you are going to die from dead mana anyway, I will let you live longer. The entire cave became silent. Only Hannah responded to Kale. Just what the hell are you talking about? Kale's smile became even wider after seeing her chaotic expression. He then said something that neither Latana, the queen of the jungle, nor the saint would understand. You can't die like the blood-crazy mage, right? Hannah's pupils started to shake. Kale did not miss that. Although he couldn't take in yesterday's enemy as a friend, he could definitely put her to use. Chapter 128, The Blood-Crazy Mage. Who is that? Queen Latana was the first to respond to Kale's statement. The saint added on a comment after her as well. What a vicious name. A mage who is crazy about blood. By the way, Hannah, do you want another potion? You look very pale. The sword master Hannah had turned completely pale. She was keeping her mouth shut, but the corners of her mouth were shaking. Kale casually handed a new handkerchief to the saint. Looks like you'll need to wipe off some of Miss Hannah's sweat. Look at all of that sweat on her forehead. Kale spoke warmly before making eye contact with Latana. Hannah put her hands behind her back in order to hide the fact that they were shaking in feigned ignorance. There was a guy who was known as the blood-crazy mage. I've only heard stories about him, but anyways, he is dead now. There was such a person. Yes. I heard that he died an extremely cruel death. Kale's body started to shake as if he did not even want to think about it before he continued to speak. He died at the hands of one of his comrades. Mem, how terrible. Kale nodded his head at Latana's subordinate's response. Hannah's face turned even paler, making the contrast between her pale face and the black spots from the dead mana seem extremely visible. Kale continued to speak. Just hearing a story like that makes my heart jump. I do not like to watch people die. Of course. I know about your personality, young Master Kale. I'm sure it is difficult for you to watch people die. Latana agreed with Kale before asking what was on her mind. But what do you mean by you will help her get revenge? Latana thought that helping someone with their revenge was not fitting Kale's character. Although she understood the resentment in the hearts of the twins, Kale's personality did not mesh well with such cruelty. Latana could see Kale starting to smile. Miss Lena, do you know what the greatest revenge is? The greatest revenge? Kale turned away from Latana, even though Latana's expression was still full of confusion. He then looked toward the pale Hannah. Miss Hannah. Kale started to speak in a respectful but stern voice. I don't know if I should be butting in like this, but I will just say one thing. What is he going to say now? Chaos and uncertainty filled Hannah's mind as Kale continued to speak. Miss Hannah, real revenge is living a long and happy life. You need to have a happy life with your older brother. Will she buy this bullshit? Kale's true feelings were that real revenge was returning the pain you received to the responsible party. That was the only way to live happily. However, what he was saying was completely opposite of his true feelings. Latana was in awe. Ah, that is what you meant. Young Master Kale, you really have a big heart unlike me. The saint was slowly starting to tear up. Meow. On jumped out of Kale's arms and landed on the ground as she started to meow. Latana started to pet the cute On's head. On seems to agree with you, young Master Kale. In reality, On had moved away from Kale in order to sigh in disbelief. As for Choi Han, he was avoiding the conversation and just looking outside the cave. Yes, young Master Nim. That is indeed the best form of revenge. But Ron was inside playing along with Kale. Kale did not care about Choi Han and On's descent. It's already so late. How about we take a quick snooze since we have a patient with us? Shall we? Latana looked outside the cave as she asked. It really was getting very late. Oh, and the siblings here are probably very tired, so how about my group and yours take turns patrolling the area, Miss Lena? Ah, just in case an enemy shows up. Latana's face turned stiff as she brought up their enemy. Yes, just in case. Great. Let's do that. Kale looked toward the twins, specifically at Hannah, after hearing Latana agree with him. The two of you can get some rest. Thank you very much. You don't know how long it has been since I could sleep peacefully. I feel like I will be relaxed tonight. The saint spoke with joy, while Hannah started to frown. Hannah, do you need to cough again? Appa, you, never mind. Hannah's mind seemed to be a complicated mess. Kale did not care about that as he casually started to speak to Latana. We will patrol first. The long conversation finally stopped as everybody started to relax. Kale's group was the first to patrol, and the Saint and Holy Maiden were deep asleep when they got back. They must have been really tired. They then switched off and Latana's group got ready to patrol with the fog controlling on. Young Master Kale, you patrolled for quite a while. We went all the way to the forest entrance. We should do the same. That should take about 2 hours. Please be careful. Latana smiled at Kale, who seemed to be getting ready to sleep, before she headed out with On and her subordinates. Of course, she made eye contact with Choi Han, who was still standing guard at the entrance. Shoya, it was quiet in the cave with only the sound of the rain and the crackling fire. However, the silence was broken once Latana's group went far away. Who are you? Hannah's voice echoed in the cave. That's my question. Kale opened his eyes that were closed and turned his head. The sword master Hannah had gotten up and was leaning on the cave wall as she glared at Kale's group. Kale sat up and made eye contact with her. The two of them stared for a moment before Hannah started to speak. Are you perhaps those people? Hannah looked toward Kale, half certain about their identity. Who are those people? She answered Kale's question with an iffy expression. The secret organization. Her expression was quite odd as she said that. It was only natural, as she was talking about another organization as the secret organization when she was part of the true secret organization. Kale answered Hannah's question. You should run if you know that. Why haven't you run? Kale started to smile, but the smile was not a friendly smile. In fact, it gave Hannah the chills. Hannah's gaze quickly peeked over to the saint before returning to Kale. Kale asked as soon as they made eye contact again. You seem to be worried about your older brother. Are you threatening me? Her eyes started to glow, and the black spots on her body started to get lighter. A golden aura started to cover her body. It was at that moment. Clang. Choi Han started to take his sword out of the scabbard, and Ron got up and moved behind Kale. Hannah bit down on her lips and grabbed her brother's hand. He was still sleeping peacefully. What should I do? Her mind was so complicated that it felt as if it would blow up. The church had used the two of them, and the Pope had treated them like dogs. The secret organization had approached her while she was looking for a way out. That organization had treated her like family. She felt like the two of them would be able to escape from the church and go to the organization that made her feel safe. However, she was betrayed by them as well. And now, in a blocked corridor, she was face to face with another enemy. She was going nuts. What should she do? It was at that moment. She could see Kale Henitus starting to speak again. I don't make threats. What? Hannah let out a sigh. Her body was in serious pain because of the dead mana, but she raised her aura to the highest level possible. You're telling me that what you are doing right now is not threatening me? Hannah looked like she was about to blow up any moment. An indifferent voice reached her ear at that time. It felt like the right thing to do to show you respect. What? What the hell is he talking about? Hannah could not understand Kale. However, Kale just shrugged his shoulders and casually commented. By the looks of it, you were betrayed by Arm as well. This man knew the name of Arm. Hannah was surprised at his network of information before she started to worry. The magic spearman seemed to be looking for you and your brother. Kale's continued words made her start to frown. The Empire, the Church, and even the secret organization were all after her. She started to glare at Kale with a frown still on her face. Why are you telling me all of this? She started to scoff as she continued to speak. You want me to obey and give you all of the information I have just because I am cornered? Aren't you a good person who is treated like a hero by the kingdom? He pretended to be a just young master, but she felt like he was closer to being an evil villain. His two-faced nature gave her the chills. Arm was the same way. They had planned on stabbing her in the back while treating her like family. Other people don't know that you are such a terrible bastard, right? The queen didn't seem to know either. She glared at Kale and continued to scoff. A calm voice responded back to her. But you know. What? You know my true nature. I showed both sides of my character to you. Isn't this enough to answer your question? Kale seemed relaxed as he continued to speak. For someone like you, who had been betrayed, I thought this was the basic level of respect I should show you. Hannah was suddenly at a loss of words. Seemed like the basic level of respect I should show you. Hannah finally understood why Kale had said that he was not threatening her. Kale quietly watched Hannah's mind process the information. He did not have any interests in threatening people. He preferred to make deals with people. Hannah finally started to, I want to talk and make a deal with you. Hannah could see Kale smiling at her after she weakened her aura. Looks like you are ready to talk now. The chilling smile from earlier was gone, and a much warmer smile had taken its place. Hannah subconsciously unclenched her fists. It was at that moment. I will not send you and your brother to the Eastern Continent. Why not? Hannah started to frown again. She had thought that the mood was good, but he planned to get in their way in the end. Kale continued to speak at that moment. I really don't know what is going through your mind. What? Don't you know that Arm controls the Eastern Continent's underworld? Hannah's body stiffened up. She could not say anything as she looked toward Kale with a shocked expression. She finally managed to quietly speak after a long time. I didn't know. You seem to have more information about them. Hannah was shocked once again at Kale's network of information. She then started to get angry about the fact that she didn't know anything. They just told me that they were a small organization working with the North. Kale suddenly flinched. What did she say? Hannah lowered her head. She pretended like she knew a lot about the world, however, she had not really experienced the world. Although she scolded her brother about it, she was pretty innocent as well. They said that they would send my brother and me to the north. They said that they were working with one of the northern kingdoms. Since they betrayed me, I thought that we would be safe if we went to the Eastern Continent. Kale stealthily turned his head to the side and made eye contact with Ron. Did I hear her correctly? Ron nodded his head with a serious expression. That seems to be the case, young Master Nim. Kale looked back toward Hannah, who slowly raised her head back up. Although she may be a sword master, she was just another poor soul who was cornered with nowhere to run. Kale looked at her face and started to think. She definitely said the North. She said that the secret organization was involved with the North. Kale felt like things were a mess, but feigned calmness as he made eye contact with Hannah. I know, right? The Northern Perrin Kingdom and Arm are working together. Kale waited for Hannah's response. His heart was beating like crazy. Hannah finally responded back. Yeah. That is why there is nowhere to run away in the Western Continent. Oh. God damn it. The North was the secret organization's partner. They're working together. Ahem, ahem. Choi Han seemed to have something stuck in his throat as he coughed a few times. Kale ignored him. Hannah continued to speak at that moment. She seemed to be holding back a lot of emotions as she continued to speak. But for the North to be working with the Empire as well. Wow, Kale felt like he was about to swear. The novel mentioned that the Empire knew about the Northern Alliance's Wyvern Knight Brigade. He had assumed that they just had a good information network, but that was not it. This is driving me nuts, however, he calmly responded back to Hannah, who was looking at him. I know, right? Hannah nodded her head at Kale's response. You really do know about it all. I didn't know anything. She covered her face with both of her hands in disappointment. Kale responded back to her. I don't know everything either. That's about the extent of my knowledge as well. Of course, that was all total bullshit. He did not learn about most of this information until right now. The Northern Alliance is working together with Arm and the Empire. Shit is about to hit the fan real fast. What should we do? Choi Han's gaze seemed to be asking him that question. What should we do? Simple. Make it an even bigger mess than it already is. Chapter 129, Then what should we do now? Hannah looked toward Kale while feeling lost. Her shaking pupils seemed to be asking Kale for answers. Unfortunately, she picked the wrong opponent. You were suspicious of me just a moment ago, but now you're asking me what you should do. Kale said whatever came to mind. His thoughts had no room for the twins right now. But you are fighting against Arm, fighting. Absolutely not. Kale shook his head as he spoke. You two should ask Miss Lena for help immediately. The jungle is vast and offers many hiding places. Miss Lena should be able to assist you. Hannah calmed slightly at Kale's composed tone. His next words resonated deeply. Heal yourself first. You're the only one who can protect yourself. You already know that, right? I do. This situation has made it clearer. Her brother possessed the sun god's healing gifts but lacked athleticism. In contrast, she excelled in combat and swordsmanship. Protecting them both was her duty. Yet Kale continued coldly, "Good. Trust no one." She met his gaze as he added, "Don't trust Miss Lena. Don't trust me either. Rely only on each other." Hannah recalled others' promises, the magic spearman's vow, "Think of me as your brother. Trust us for freedom," and the Pope's declaration, "I elevated worthless children into stars. Trust me to bask you in the sun god's light." All demanded trust. Now this man told her not to trust him, his face indifferent. She nodded. "Okay. I won't trust you." Kale nodded back. That was the right decision for Hannah to make. All this woman in front of him had was her dying body and her brother, who only had healing abilities. She had nowhere to run and just needed somewhere to hide. After being betrayed by the Empire, the secret organization, and the church, she had nowhere to go. That was why Kale said the following. "And I will take you to someone who can save you, so just wait for me." Can I really live? Yes. The blonde sword master's eyes started to be filled with life again. She touched a spot on her arm that was dyed black before looking at Kale with a focused expression. "And what do you want from me in return?" Kale started to smile. "Miss Hannah, you are quite smart." Hannah had remembered everything that Kale had said. "You told me that you were going to make a deal with me." Contrary to what the other organizations she had worked with had done, Kale had said that he wanted to make a deal. Kale thought about the upcoming battle between the Tiger Tribe, the Whale Tribe, an arm that Watira had shared with him. It was the attack on Arm's first battle brigade. She had mentioned that it would happen in the winter. Currently, the three northern kingdoms have aligned themselves with Arm and have a separate agreement with the Empire. Either that, or all three of them were working together. Kale could not be sure about which it was. That was why Hannah finally laid down with a relaxed expression. She looked over at Choi Han once, but after seeing that Choi Han was looking at Kale, she just quietly closed her eyes. Kale watched her close her eyes before looking back up at the cave ceiling. He would not be getting any sleep tonight. Why does everybody want to fight? Kale, who wanted to cry, could not fall asleep. The rain stopped early next morning. Kale looked out at the foggy forest and sat down on a round boulder. The cool morning air greeted him as he walked outside of the cave. "Ah. Why are you sighing so early in the morning?" Kale turned around to look at the person standing behind him. "Miss Latana." Queen Latana approached Kale. She sat down on a boulder next to Kale and looked at him with a concerned expression. "Young Master Kale, it doesn't look like you got any sleep." "There was a lot on my mind." The slacker life moved further away from him once again. Kale was saddened by that fact. "Ah." Latana let out a small gasp. She then looked toward Kale with both pity and respect. "Of course. Knowing your personality, this type of situation and the information you received is probably hard to handle." "Yes, this is all too much for me." Latana felt bad seeing the good and just Kale sounding so weak. However, she had something to tell him because he was such a person. "Young Master Kale, you mentioned last night that ignoring the enemies and living a happy and healthy life was the greatest revenge, right?" Kale looked toward Latana and started to think. Is it time to cause a mess? He had a pretty good idea about why she had approached him. That was why he answered back quickly. "Yes, I believe that that is the greatest form of revenge." Of course, that was not what he really thought. "I see. But I have a different perspective about it." Kale could see the fury in Latana's eyes. She had not forgotten about the fire that had burned the jungle last year. Thankfully, nobody had died from the fire, but the people were not the only subjects she ruled over in the jungle. The people of the jungle believed in the concept of an eye for an eye. She calmly started to speak, like the calm before the storm. Numerous trees, vegetation, and animals died in that fire. We also have needed to put in a lot of time and effort in order to restore Section 1 of the jungle. The people who used to live there have been forced to continue to wait until the restoration is complete. Latana did not become the queen of the jungle for no reason. A leader needs to know how to care for their people, but, more importantly, they needed to defend their people against danger while fighting against their enemies. As a citizen of the jungle, I need to get revenge for them. She wondered what kind of expression Kale would have about her perspective. However, what Kale said before she managed to look at his face made Latana start to smile. I believe that there is only one reason why you are suddenly bringing up what we discussed last night. It was obvious why Latana would look for Kale alone so early in the morning. Kale started to speak. I will contact His Highness on your behalf. Young Master Kale, you really are as wise as you are good. Latana was different than Tunka. She wanted to do something about the fire as well as the dead mana bombs. However, she knew that it would be difficult to do anything alone. I'm sure that Crown Prince Alberu will welcome a conversation with you, Miss Lena. Thank you for saying that, young Master Kale. I think that we will not be able to do it alone because the Empire is involved. We will need to prepare to reveal the information about the dead mana bombs soon. Latana did not seem to be rushed. Kale asked in a casual tone. Are you aiming for when the Empire finishes their war against the Whipper Kingdom? Yes. Kale could see Latana touching the tip of the spear by her side as her eyes started to sparkle. She then quietly added, we need to prepare for war as well. She was vicious. The moment Kale tried to turn away because he got the chills, she started to speak again. Ah, young Master Kale. Here is your compensation. Kale looked at the paper she placed in front of him before looking back at her. This is compensation. Latana just smiled at Kale's gaze before pushing the paper closer to him. Kale picked it up and opened it to see what was inside. Oh, Kale internally gasped in shock. Latana started to speak. The size of the land you picked to build your villa was too small. As such, I thought that it would be nice to give you the hill, as well as a part of the shore that is next to the land you picked. Section 1 of the jungle's shoreline, it was a deed indicating ownership of the entire hill where he had found the magic stones, plus about half of the shoreline. Kale's heart started to beat fast with excitement. Latana chuckled before adding, we are not done with restoration yet, but thankfully, the land was under the chief's jurisdiction. The tribe agrees with my decision. Half of the shoreline is too much. He said that just to seem modest. Latana shook her head. No, not at all. You travel by ship, so we're giving it to you for convenient access. But still. Please accept it as the feelings of the people of Section 1. Kale sighed before putting the paper into his pocket. If that is the case, then I will accept it. Yes, thank you very much. Latana looked at Kale, who accepted the large plot of land without hesitation, with a satisfied smile. However, she quickly masked it once their eyes met. Kale then started to speak as if things had worked out for the better. I guess you can meet with His Highness at that location. I will be able to sneak him in through my ship. Ah. Latana was in awe of Kale, who had thought of that plan. How could he always be thinking about the future, as well as about other people and his kingdom? Kale cautiously added on after seeing Latana's reaction. Oh, and Miss Latana, it is so sad about what happened to those twins. Please take good care of them until I return with someone to heal her. Your caring nature always makes me so full of admiration, young Master Kale. Kale put on an embarrassed smile for Latana as he started to think. His Highness is going to tell me that I'm driving him nuts again. It was obvious how Alberu would respond. Kale's group walked with Latana and the twins until the entrance of the Path of No Return on the side of the jungle. Of course, Kale had stealthily handed Hannah a video communication device. Meow, Kale nodded his head at On's meow. Yes, let's go. Kale started to head back toward the gold dragon Iruben's lair on Mount Yelia. Kale flinched as soon as he arrived at the peak of Mount Yelia. Human. Human. He could see a black blob rushing toward him. It was, as expected, Rayon. Mio, Hong and Locke came out of the lair behind Rayon. How did they know we were coming? Kale slowly took a step to the side. He felt like he would die if Rayon rammed into him. That was how fiercely Rayon was rushing toward him. Human. What? Rayon's expression brightened up after seeing Kale's indifferent reaction. Human, you haven't changed. Rayon started to fly in circles around Kale's body. Are you hurt? Did you miss me? do you know what I have learned? Rayon started to ask question after question. Kale felt like Rayon would never stop asking questions, so he just petted Rayon's head and answered back, I'm sure that you are doing well, since you are a great and mighty dragon. Rayon started to snicker. You are right. The golden dragon said that I was a genius. Yes, yes, you are a great and mighty genius. Human, do you know what I learned yesterday? Something like a volcano. Kale cut Rayon off, as he thought that it would never stop. Video communication device. Connect me to the Crown Prince. I got it. Rayon shouted that he understood and quickly connected Kale with the Crown Prince. Alberu stared at Kale with a grumpy expression for the first time in a while. Asterisk, what is it? Is it about what Miss Rosalind told me yesterday? Asterisk, no. I have something else to tell you. Alberu's expression turned odd while looking at Kale. This was the first time Kale had gotten right to the point without useless bullshit about how he was the star of the kingdom and whatnot. Asterisk, what is it? And where are you? Why is everything so shiny? Asterisk, the room that Iruben had lent Kale was a fancy room covered in gold. It was part of Rayon's request to give Kale the best treatment possible. Alberu was looking at the room that seemed fancier than even the king's room and wondering where the hell Kale might be. However, Kale did not answer that question and instead said something else. The organization that was responsible for the terror incident is apparently working together with the Northern Alliance. What? Kale explained what he had learned to the now shocked Alberu. The relationship between the Church of the Sun God and the Empire. The actions of the Empire. His meeting with the twins. The relationship between the jungle and the Empire. Furthermore, Kale also mentioned that they had an incident with the Whale Tribe and that the Whale Tribe was planning on fighting against the secret organization's 1st Battle Brigade. Alberu blinked a couple times as he asked, So you're telling me that the Queen of the Jungle wants to meet with me? And that the Empire did all of that? They are also working together with the Northern Alliance. Kale's response was simple. Yes, Your Highness. Alberu continued to speak. Who are you? Kale Henitus. HAAA. You're driving me nuts. Alberu responded the way Kale had expected him to respond. Kale asked Alberu a question. Isn't shit really about to hit the fan? What a mess above and below our kingdom. That is why we need to cause a ruckus as well. Alberu stopped frowning and looked toward Kale. Your Highness, aren't we currently allied with the Breck Kingdom? Furthermore, think about who else we have on our side. Alberu started to smile. The jungle, the whales, and the Whipper Kingdom. We also have the framed twins as well. Don't forget about the dark elves who can handle the dead mana bombs. Kale did not mention this next part, but there were things he had prepared in advance for this as well. They also had a dragon who would help them with everything, as well as another dragon who they might be able to rope in to help. Kale Henitus and Alberu Crossman had similar-looking smiles on their faces. Rayon, who had been standing outside of the visible range of the video communication device, started to speak into Kale's mind in a jovial voice. Human, I haven't seen that smile of yours in a while. What are you planning to do? I want to get excited as well. What am I planning to do? I'm preparing to smack the Empire, the Northern Alliance, and the secret organization around. Alberu started to speak. Might be worth a try. Right. Chapter 130. Not scared, definitely worth a try. Alberu seemed to be a bit excited. You're telling me something refreshing, albeit annoying, for the first time in a while. Kale nodded his head. That is true. I don't only pass the headaches to you. Alberu naturally scoffed. He had never seen anybody who had more incidents revolving around them than Kale Henitus. At Kale's level, it was pretty much fate. However, Alberu did not share his thoughts. Instead, he shared the information he needed to share with Kale. The prisoner you sent over is being interrogated by my aunt right now. Is it going well? Of course, Kale knew that Tasha was probably torturing the prisoner and not actually interrogating him. However, Kale did not point that out. I presume that he may give us some information in the near future. My aunt brought over an expert to help out. Kale wondered who the expert the dark elves had brought in was. He had an idea but still nodded his head while feigning ignorance. Alberu was talking to himself in order to process his thoughts while Kale did that. There's a lot to do. I will contact the Queen of the Jungle and the Whipper Kingdom's chiefs. If we do that, we should be able to at least divide the Empire and the Northern Alliance geographically. Alberu stopped mid-sentence to look at Kale. Why are you looking at me like that? Kale was looking at Alberu with a warm smile on his face. Kale had no problem responding to Alberu's question. Because I am proud to call you my prince. I have so much respect for you, your highness. Kale was thinking that it was a good decision to speak with Alberu. This smart person was also diligent, willing to do all of the annoying things for him. That was why he was proud of Alberu. Hiya. Alberu just sighed in response before asking a question. What do you plan to do next? Kale did not even blink as he responded back to Alberu. I will gather information. However, he had other plans. Gather information. I plan to go relax until fall. What else can I do right now? However, Kale could see Alberu smiling oddly. Yes, I'm sure you'll bring me some useful information. Alberu was thinking that Kale would end up getting involved in something, as usual, and be able to bring him information. Kale alone was better than Alberu's entire information network. Yes, well. Kale felt iffy about Alberu's smile, so he chose to just look away. He just told Alberu to deliver a message to Mary on his behalf before turning the communication device off. Their farewell became friendlier every time they talked. I always have nightmares after chatting with you. You bastard, may you live long and healthy, young master. You funny bastard, click. Alberu then hung up on Kale. Kale felt like he could relax a bit, but he could not do so. It was the sound of something flying through the air. Kale got scared after seeing the black blob flying toward him like a bullet. Why is he acting like this? Rayon stopped almost right in front of Kale's face. Rayon's eyes were burning up with passion, making Kale start to worry. Human! Rayon suddenly shouted. Let's go find the power of Earth. Right. I still had to do that. Kale started to feel tired. He pushed the floating Rayon away before letting out a sigh. What about your lessons? Rayon needed to learn from Iruben. Rayon's wings flinched for a moment at Kale's question, but Rayon responded back confidently. I can ask him to take me on a trip in order to get practical experience. Whoa, he wants Iruben to come with us to find the super rock. Is he planning to destroy a continent or something? Kale waved his hand and responded back. You just stay here and focus on your lessons. I can just go with Choi Han. He was not crazy enough to take 2 dragons with him to find the super rock. Kale sighed at this unbelievable suggestion. He then felt like something was wrong. Rayon was quiet. Kale turned his head to look at Rayon. Human. Rayon lowered his voice and puffed up his chest. Listen to the words of the great and mighty Rayon. The weak human needs me. The 5-year-old was trying to look majestic. However, it did not change the fact that he was a 5-year-old that Kale had seen since he was 4. Is Iruben not teaching him about the majestic air of dragons? Kale just agreed since it would be too annoying to argue. Whatever. Rayon started to smile. Good. Human. You made the right decision. I will go tell Iruben. Rayon left the room that was shining from gold and jewels and flew toward Iruben. Kale looked at Rayon flying away and started to think. Shouldn't it be asking Iruben and not telling him? He felt iffy again at Rayon's choice of words, but took out the book he received from the elves as there was nothing he could do about Rayon. It was an old book, but it seemed to be imbued with magic, as the pages were still in good condition. Kale opened the book to the first page, which only had a single sentence. He closed the book. This book was weird as well. However, Kale opened the book again in order to be able to live his life without a ticking bomb inside his body. He thought to himself that he has to do all sorts of things in order to live a safe life and started to frown. He turned the page. This part sounded normal. Kale slowly turned the pages while reading through. His frown slowly started to disappear. There were sentences that caught his attention every so often. Kale recalled the ancient legend that Taylor had shared with him in the past. It was about the guardian that saved the kingdom of boulders. It was a legend about a hero who saved the continent's northeast territory when the continent was covered in darkness. Is it related to that legend? Kale recalled that legend as he continued to read on. He slowly started to smile. The Fire of Destruction, the money that the owner of the Fire of Destruction had collected, was taken by the hero in this book. Kale was happy after reading the words, accumulated so much. However, his expression turned odd as he continued to read. The ancient power described in this book seemed to be the scary giant cobblestone. That was not the problem. Kale started to flip the pages faster. Flip. Kale flipped the book over after reading until the last page. Kale let out a sigh and started to think about what he had just read. The strongest boulder was referring to granite. God damn it. Kale started to frown again. Sounds like my backyard. It definitely seemed to be describing the Hennetis territory, specifically, the Forest of Darkness. Kale had a good idea about what he needed to do to earn the scary giant cobblestone. The Fire of Destruction would show Kale the way. Although he knew the approximate location and how to get it, Kale was feeling oddly uncomfortable. It was at that moment. Human. Rayon flew back in through the open door. Kale's expression turned odd as he lifted his head up. Human. Don't you eat fruits when you read? I brought you some. Fresh fruit. Rayon was flying toward him while carrying a tray of fruits on top of his short front paws. He then put it on the table in front of Kale. Rayon started to speak as Kale quietly stared at him. Human, I heard that you were drenched by the rain as you went to the cave. You suffered quite a bit. You need to eat delicious food so that you can grow up strong. At that moment, Kale could hear another voice behind Rayon. Wow, I've never seen a dragon serve a human in my 1,000 years of existence. I've seen it all at this point. The gold dragon Iruben, who was walking in behind Rayon, clicked his tongue and shook his head. Rayon seemed to have finally thought about Iruben, as he pointed toward Iruben. I brought Goldie Gramps as well. I brought him so that we can talk about the practical experience. Iruben looked toward Rayon with disbelief. When did I become Goldie Gramps? Kale was curious about that but just pointed to a chair for Iruben. Iruben Nim, please sit. The gold dragon let out a sigh that did not fit his appearance and plopped down on the couch across from Kale. Why did I let in such a troublesome little kid at my old age? Goldie, I am not troublesome. Plop. Plop. Kale was eating grapes one at a time while observing the two dragons chatting. Iruben scoffed at Rayon's retort. Not troublesome. You're already thinking about ditching your lessons. No. I am trying to go help the weak human become strong. And I am not trying to ditch, I just want to go get real experience with you, Goldie. Bang. Bang. Rayon banged on the golden table. Goldie. I want to go with you. Kale did not miss the short twitch in the corner of Iruben's lips. The ancient dragon, who had lived alone for close to 1,000 years, responded back to the 5-year-old dragon with indifference. I don't feel like going with you. No. I want to go with you, Goldie. Rayon vigorously shook his head and made his stance clear. The corner of Iruben's lips twitched once again. Kale did not miss any of this. The gold dragon spoke with indifference once more. Little kid, it is my decision whether or not I go with you. He then coldly spoke to Kale. Kale Hennetis, it is not easy to find the power of Earth. It will be very different to go around looking for it without any information. Kale started to think that this ancient dragon was a total softie. The gold dragon did not know Kale's thoughts as he continued to speak. We will first need to look for any books that might discuss the power. Plop. Iruben looked toward the table after hearing the noise. He could see an ancient book that looked like it would hold information about ancient legends. Iruben stopped for a moment before starting to speak again. Once we find the book, we will need to find the location of the ancient power, as well as the method of gaining it. I already found it. All of it. Yes, sir. The gold dragon observed the human sitting confidently in front of him. This human already had 6 ancient powers on him. Iruaben had no choice but to accept it. You must be crazy lucky. Kale started to smile. Iruaben snorted in response. At that moment, there was a short paw tapping on Iruaben's arm. Goldie, let's go. An excited Rayon was the owner of the paw. Iruaben looked back and forth between Rayon and Kale. Rayon had explained everything to him, including the 4 years of hell and how he had met Kale. Iruaben responded coldly to the human and black dragon. I will do whatever I want to do. That is what a dragon does. A few days later, Kale arrived back at Harris Village in order to head into the Forest of Darkness and earn the Super Rock. A knight standing guard greeted Kale. Young Master Nim, welcome back. Thanks. The people who are always with you aren't here today. Looks like only a few people are with you this time. The knight asked after seeing the people Kale brought with him. Kale casually nodded his head and responded back. Well, we're just resting here for a few days. Right, Hillsman. Hillsman, one of the people who came with Kale, was standing there with a blank expression before getting shocked at Kale calling out his name. Yes, yes. That is correct. The knight looked toward Hillsman with concern after seeing Hillsman respond with a pale expression. Kale's stern but warm voice reached the knight's ear. The vice captain seems to have gotten motion sickness. I thought he was only prone to seasickness, but it looks like he has carriage sickness as well. Ah, I see. Vice Captain Nim, are you doing okay? Hillsman nodded his head. Hillsman continued to speak once Kale patted him on the shoulder. And I will be guarding the young Master Nim with this. Hillsman could not continue speaking. His gaze shifted to the only other person who came with them, a handsome man with blonde hair. Pointing with both hands at the men watching him, Hillsman finished, this senior and I will be guarding the young Master Nim. We will be moving around freely, so there is no need to follow us. Yes, sir. The knight responded energetically before peeking at the person next to Kale. Everyone Kale had brought had a scary disposition, but this newcomer seemed even more difficult to approach. Then keep up the good work. Yes, young Master Nim. The knight and soldiers saluted Kale before watching the 3 walk into the village, Kale, Vice Captain Hillsman, and the stranger. Kale clicked his tongue and spoke to Hillsman. Why are you so nervous? Right, Iruaben Nim. Indeed. Iruaben looked toward Hillsman and added, Human, live life in peace. Hillsman vigorously nodded his head. Kale had naturally explained Iruaben's identity to him. Most of Kale's group remained in Iruaben's lair, with only 3 accompanying him into the Forest of Darkness, Hillsman handling chores and necessities, and 2 dragons. The human world has not changed, mused the ancient dragon. Hillsman grabbed Kale's clothes like he had during seasickness, but Kale pushed his hand away as Rayon's voice echoed in his mind, Super Rock. I am not scared of this supposedly scary giant cobblestone. We have 2 dragons, indeed. Kale felt no fear. There was no way he could be scared.